Start counting.
Welcome to the Foul Play YouTube channel.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another edition of the Open Mic from Foul Play and everyone out there. Today, we're going to be continuing our discussion about Mark Rohr, part 2 of his deposition. And I got to tell you, I read through it again last night. I've read it before, but I read through it again, and I have to warn you, it's going to be really irritating because the number of times that he says, I don't recall, I don't remember, that's all I can remember, it really gets pretty infuriating for me. Has anyone here read through it? You're with me now? Anyone?
I read
Even
about
Totally.
5 or 6 pages of I
We're
don't
reading it,
recall.
yep.
I don't recall.
Yes.
I don't recall.
Yeah. Makes it hard to read it because you just keep reading his same responses over and over.
Yeah, it really is infuriating. I got so aggravated. Well, you'll see here what I did when I was going through it. I actually began highlighting this, keep it separate, make it a little bit maybe easier for people out there to read as we're going through it. And you'll see as time goes on, I really got tired of really just highlighting. I don't recall. I don't remember. I'd stopped doing it. And I really started kind of focusing on some of the more important things that Glenn or Kelly, I think it was Glenn that was questioning this time, or Mr. Kelly. I don't remember. It was one of them. But regardless, I've really started really focusing more on them. Now, with that said, let me get back over here.
Even the lawyer was getting upset. He was like, come on, you're a lawyer. You know the difference about what I'm saying precisely or verbatim. I'm asking you what's the best of your recollection. And he's like, he's like totally being a jackass.
He's been a dick, and he actually gets worse because you got to remember, people, you can't just think of Mark Rohr as this prosecutor. This lawyer they got put into the prosecutor's job because he threw his name in the hat when Michael Griesbeck did, he refused the job after he got elected. Now, we can pin the donkey on that one at some other point, but I don't know why he would refuse it. I think there's many reasons, but Mark Rohr is an experienced lawyer. He graduated law from law school like 13 years prior to this, and he had practiced law basically at 2 firms. So he's an experienced criminal defense lawyer. He's not like a newbie. So anyway, with that said,
that's why he's answering I don't recall, right? It's like a way to circumvent saying I plead the fifth, which makes you look very guilty in a way when you take the fifth. So
yeah, I mean, because
I don't recall is next best, right?
Yeah, or he'll say, "Oh, that's all I can remember at this time," and so that gives him an out. It's really really irritating. So anyway,
at this time, does that mean like later if they ask him again, he might be able to know?
Yeah,
or if he decides
really.
to write a book like Ken Kratz, he'll have all the details that he'll all of a sudden remember everything. Being a lawyer, why doesn't
today
he
or what? Yeah, have you been drinking today or what?
He's a lawyer. Why doesn't he recall? That should be something that his brain does. He should be able to remember details off the top of his head for cases and stuff, yet he can't recall my butt.
It's even worse than that, because you'll see how the defense really goes after him about what he's doing. And I'm going to point that out to you. What's that, BB?
Well, we can't shut Kratz up, right? Can't make him stop talking about it.
That is an interesting thing, what we found out there yesterday about his first edition and his second edition, right?
Right. Oh, that was a nice catch. You made a nice catch there.
I can't believe he did it. Wow.
Has Silkman seen that
I missed it. What with the first edition and the second edition?
Go ahead, BB, tell her.
Jack caught it. Man, Jack caught it.
Basically, he's talking, when Silkman was talking yesterday, he was quoting from Kratz's book, and he's reading from the second edition. It's got the Brennan stuff in it and so forth that he added to it. And he was talking about when he first learned about the case, the Avery case. He's in his office, he says, and Wiegert comes in and says, "You're never going to believe what's going on, talk about Teresa Halbach." And guess who was the last person that saw her? Stephen Avery. Well, I'm thinking to myself, remembering from, a couple of years ago, there was a quote, and Nexus actually, a mod on Reddit had actually did a detailed review of his book. And it specifically said, I misquoted, I misunderstood. I thought Kratz said that it was that Wiegert had came there in the morning. That's not what the quote was. What it was is that when in the first edition of the book, Wiegert came to Kratz's office and said, "Guess who got kidnapped this morning, or who went missing this morning? Teresa Halbach." That's in the first edition, but it's not in the second edition. It's gone. He changed it. It's been all removed or whatever. He doesn't say morning.
So he not only added in 2 chapters at the end, he went back and dirty deleted some stuff that was in the book previous.
What's the old song there, BB? Dirty deeds done dirt cheap.
Yep.
So yeah, they removed that. He removed that part.
Well,
I wonder how many edits there are.
If he removed that one sentence, what's not to say he didn't remove other stuff throughout the book?
I bet he did. So anyway, it'll be interesting. Maybe we can look into that later. We got a lot of irons in the fire though. So let's get started. Page 27. Let me pop this up here. Page 27 of the Mark Rohr deposition. Let me see here.
Catnip just posted the detailed review of the Kratz's book. By the way, she just posted a link to it in the chat.
Claims versus facts and other observations. Nexuses.
Yeah.
Jack, while you're searching for what you want to talk about next, starting with this, I wanted to kind of go back to where we were all talking, or everyone was talking about how Rohr should know these things. How can he keep saying I don't recall, or I don't remember, or I don't remember at the moment, or whatever. Not only all of that, but he knew he was getting ready for this deposition. He should have been reviewing every single note for every single bit of information.
You're gonna find out some more things about Mr. Rohr, and it's gonna really tick you off. So it will explain that part of it. I promise you, you're not gonna like it at all.
Oh, I'm sure I won't. Okay, I was.
Oh, that's a good point, and it's really an excellent point, because you'll see what he does. And remember, this started out with Avery's civil attorneys, what they were looking for, basically from Rohr. They wanted to know what steps that Rohr and his department had taken in order to search out any and all police records and files on Gregory Allen. That's what they were after. So don't let that slide by your brain, because ultimately we're going to come to some conclusions, and everyone can come to their own conclusion. I'll tell you mine. You can come up with your own, and it is what it is. But I think it's important to understand a lot of the mechanics going on. This is here we are in September 22nd, 2005. So we're a little over a month away from the big incident that's fixing to happen for Stephen Avery. So anyway, let's get going here, and I'll try to get through this. I'm not gonna read every page, because we're basically 50 pages away. There's like 10 pages of index. I don't want to read every bit of it, because it would take too long. But I'm going to read a good chunk of it so you understand who this guy is and what he's about. So anyway, he's talking about where we're picking up here. He's talking about where Rohr and Griesberg had went to Madison to meet with Peg Lattenschauer and a bunch of other people, and it's going to be, you're going to see who they are. So here we go. So when you got to Madison, did you speak to Mr. Tinker? Remember, Mr. Tinker basically works in the DOJ's office, and he assigns who gets what cases from the AAG's office. They're the ones that he's the one that gives these different lawyers their different cases. So that's who Tinker is. He says yes. Did you speak to anybody else? Yes. Who? We met with during the meeting Attorney General Peg Lattenschauer, various other assistant attorney generals were present. Don't know all their names. DC investigators were present. Let's start with the assistant attorney generals. Did you talk to Mike Bauer? I don't recall the names. And as I said, all the assistants that were there, but he may have been present. What about Tom Fallon? Do you recall whether he was there? Not Fallon? Fallon. Yeah, he was present. All right. Jennifer Nashold. Was she present? No. Jennifer Nashold, don't forget, she is the one that collected all the reports that Amy Lemon and Deb Strauss did. She got them all, and she filtered through them and did whatever. So, Big Jeff and I did a really interesting podcast with Linda that this Jennifer Nashold was really involved in. So, if you have the chance sometime and you're interested, go take that, give that a listen. Anyway, I don't recall that name, but she may have been present also. Also, this Monica Burkett Brist, she's also there. And she's a higher up, a little bit further up the food chain, I think, than Jennifer Nashold. So was she present? Again, she may have been present, but I don't recall the name. All right, Robbie Lowry. She may have been present, but I don't recall the name. Do you remember the identity of any other DCI investigators? No, not. Does Deb Strauss ring a bell at all? Do you remember whether she was present on that occasion? She may have been present, but I don't recall the name. All right, by that time, that is, so to say, the time that you got to Madison at the Attorney General's office, you'd received information from people in the District Attorney's office about Gregory Allen. Is that right? Yes. Who were the people you had received the information? I don't recall precisely. Give me your best recollection. It may have been Bev Badker and Brenda Peterson. Anybody else that you recall? No. By the time you went to the Madison to meet in the Attorney General's office, had you further discussions with Michael Griesbach about Gregory Allen? Yes. How many? I don't know. Tell me what you recall the contents of the discussion. I don't recall the contents of those discussions. At all? No. Question, to your knowledge, at that time, had Mr. Griesbach been conducting any further inquiries who Gregory Allen was, what his record was, and so forth? Here I may have done that. Question, well, let's start with you. What did you do? Answer, I'm not sure who did what, but we did criminal history check on Mr. Allen at the Sheriff's Department. Anything further that you recall? He had done the CCAP check before that, right? Remember, the CCAP is a prosecutor's tool that they can use to run someone's criminal history, right? Answer, he or I may have gotten hold of a prior complaint out of the clerk's office. I forgot who got it. It was either he or I. Question, have the two of you, in respect to the search, made a decision to try and find out within the confines of the county Manitowoc government whatever you could about Gregory Allen? That was not what we were doing, no. What did you consider that you were doing? Just as answer, just as I told you, we got a criminal history check from Mr. Allen from the Sheriff's Department, and I believe Mike or I obtained that complaint. All right. With whom did you do the criminal history check in the Sheriff's Department? Answer, I don't recall. Was it a Sheriff's Department personnel? Yes. Was it Mr. Beck? Answer, I don't recall. To your knowledge, what did they examine to respond to your inquiry? They printed out a criminal history for us, and that was it. Question: was it an extensive history, in your opinion? Answer: I don't recall the history. Question: tell me everything you can recall that Brenda Peterson told you after she heard this information about Gregory Allen from you. Answer: she may have at the time mentioned Mr. Allen. I don't recall what she said precisely. Tell me your best recollection. I don't care whether it's precise or not. I want to know your best recollection of what she told you. Answer: I don't recall exactly what she said. See, he's being a dick here. He knows he just wants some kind of general information, but he's resisting answering the question. Question: I'm not asking you exactly. I'm asking your best general recollection of what Brenda Peterson told you about Gregory Allen after you told her what you had been informed by the crime lab. Then, of course, we got lawyers jumping in objecting, asked and answered, I object on foundation, blah, blah, blah. So, anyway, question you can answer. This is Kelly. Answer: I don't recall what she said precisely. And again, he's not asking precisely, just general. So let's move on. And then he goes into, I don't recall what she said verbatim. And there's a big argument about that. Anyway, we'll move on. And then Kelly, your best recollection, whatever it may be, general, precise, exact, specific, whatever, your best recollection of what Brenda Peterson told you after you told her about Gregory Allen. Again, she knew about Gregory Allen, and that's, again, I don't recall what she said. Okay, let's try it this way. Did she tell you that she had always believed from the beginning that Gregory Allen had been the person who assaulted Penny Bernstein? I don't recall those exact words being used. So again, he's being flippant, or basically been a jerk, in my opinion. He's a lawyer. He knows what he's doing. Okay, what do you recall of the words that she used in telling you what she believed about that? There may have been mentioned that she believed that Allen was the perpetrator, and who was they that she was referring to? She mentioned just in conversation about herself. Question: well, you just said they, right? Was she referring to herself and Beverly Badker? Again, answer: I'm not sure. Like I said, as I said, I don't recall the conversation. Question: you were so disturbed about what she told you concerning the knowledge of Brenda Peterson and Beverly Badker that you contacted the Attorney General's office to ask him about that, right? Answer: no. The purpose of contacting the Attorney General was to do an investigation about the file. That's why I contacted them, to do an independent investigation, from my recollection. Question: but what caused you to want to do the independent investigation? Was what you had been told by Brenda Peterson, Beverly Badker, and perhaps others? Is that right? Answer: no. Question: I'm going to ask you to take a moment and examine what is Exhibit 5 in this proceeding. And I'm going to direct your attention to the third full paragraph from the bottom of the page on base 00. It's page 5614 for them. It's like a state pages that you see from the DCI. That they have this number at the bottom, and they're generally way up there. Have you had a chance to examine that? Yes. May I have it, please? The paragraph that I directed your attention to, I'm going to read it into the record. Soon after the mistake became public knowledge within the Manitowoc County Courthouse, the current district attorney, Mark Rohr, started receiving information from people that within the courthouse believed that the crimes were committed by Avery. These people all believed Allen committed the crime. Some of these individuals even stated to D.A. Rohr they made these concerns known to either the district attorney at the time, Dennis Vogel, or the Manitowoc County Sheriff, Tom Casor. First of all, did you tell that information to the Attorney General's office? If Mr. Tinker said I did, I did. Well, what's your recollection of whether or not this is accurately reciting what you told the Attorney General's office? I did receive that information, yes. And did you tell that to them? Yes. And The information that you received was from the what source? As the document points, employees in the office and others. Who were they? Answer. There were some people in the sheriff's department. There were people in the office in the DA's office. Okay, let's start with the DA's office. Who were the people in the DA's office? Answer. Bev Badker and Brenda Peterson. So they talk about them in a second. Who were the people in the sheriff's office? The names that were mentioned were Andrew Colburn and Jim Link had information that he had received. When you say the names were mentioned by to whom? Answer, I don't recall if they talked to me specifically or someone else. And the information then came to me. Question, and who would that someone else be? Again, I don't recall how information got to me. It's either through another source or from them directly. So they go on a bit about that and talk about Sheriff Peterson. I'm not going to read all this.
So is how he found out not through Peterson, right? It was through Kishore.
No, it seems to have come from Brenda Peterson and Bev Badker. That's where it seems to originate from, and then he began to get other information as well.
Okay.
That's what I'm getting. Before we go any further, I'm about 10 pages in. Is there any questions? I haven't been looking at the chat at all. So, any questions?
I'm fine with it.
I'm sorry.
Stacy Seabrook said he's going to make a song about I don't recall. Shane Hendry says, I object, Your Honor. Judge, for what? I don't recall.
Yeah, this guy here, you just think that I don't recalls are like a lot now. Jeez. A little bit later, it just gets ridiculous. You'll see what I did.
If I can quick interrupt you, Jinx gave us a link to the Netflix deposition. Thank you, Seeking. And it's in the chat if you guys want to follow.
Who did that?
I also posted the direct link to Exhibit 12 in this chat here if you want to share that one, because I thought it was that one, but it was the file folder that it opened.
Yeah, I did. I shared both, so.
Yeah, for those that missed last week, Seeking Truth got a number of documents from the Netflix versus Colburn v. Netflix civil lawsuit, and the Mark Rohr, among others, Mark Rohr Part 2 deposition was part of that. It's public information also. This one, Jim Link, Colburn. There's a number. There's like something like there's like 6 or 7 that are public now. So because of the lawsuit.
You read that when he says about how he found out about Colburn and Link, he doesn't recall where he got those names, but we know because he had that memo from that Douglas guy, right?
Doug Jones, yeah.
Found out about Link and Colburn from Koosh, right?
That's correct.
So when he's saying he don't recall, he had a memo that should have recalled for him.
he doesn't really like talking about the memo too much, but you know, yes. I can't remember the part in the deposition the clip that we saw. I can't remember what was going on at the time, but I know he looked like he was about to fall out. He looked bad, terrible, pulling on his collar and looked like he wanted out of there. And I don't blame him. You know, he's caught up in a pretty large
sweaty.
Well, I mean, he's caught up in a bunch of stuff that, you know, he wasn't there. So, you know, he got caught up in a quagmire really for him. And it's not necessarily that I feel terrible for him, but again, at the same time, I kind of do.
Well, he looked ridiculous. I love that part.
Well, he looked like he was about to die, you know. I mean, but at the same time, you know, he's sitting there saying, I don't recall. But, you know.
Oh, but then he's familiar with that piece of paper.
Well, the Doug Jones memo is really interesting too. But anyway, any more questions before I move on? No. Okay. What was the discussion about Andy Colburn? No, it was not. My recollection, we weren't discussing Andy. May have. I don't know. Well, I thought you're correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought your prior testimony, this led you to an entire dialogue that is that you received from some other source information about Andy Colburn and Jim Link in respect to Gregory Allen. In regard to this case, that's what I said in regard to the Avery case. Okay, so what were you told at that meeting about Andy Colburn and Jim Link? I don't recall. You have no recollection at all? I don't recall. I should have highlighted these two. I got tired of doing it though. Question: what were you told in that meeting about that one or more members of the sheriff's department believed about Gregory Allen? I don't recall. Was Gregory Allen brought up at the meeting? Yes. Question: by whom? Answer: I don't recall. Can you believe it? Question: did Ken Peterson talk about Gregory Allen? Answer: he may have. Question: did Ken Peterson produce any documents? Answer: from my recollection, yes. Question: did he go into the safe to get them? Answer: not that I'm aware of. I didn't. Question: did he go to his own desk to get them? Answer: I don't know. Question: did he discuss with you at that meeting Tom Kosoric? Answer: yes. Question: did he tell you anything about Tom Kosoric having been informed about Gregory Allen at the time of the Stephen Avery prosecution? Answer: I don't recall what he said about Tom Kosoric during that meeting. Question: you have no recollection? Answer: I do not recall what he said. Question: did he talk about Tom Kosoric having been provided information by a man named Berggren, who worked for the City of Manitowoc Police Department at the time of the Stephen Avery case? Answer: I don't recall that. Question: about how long did that meeting last? Answer: less than an hour, I would say. Question: was Mr. Beck present? Answer: I don't recall. Question: was Mr. Colburn present? Answer: I don't recall. Question: was Mr. Link present? Answer: I don't recall. Question: other than the people that you've mentioned, do you know anybody else who was present? Answer: as I said earlier, Mr. Griesbeck may have been present. Question: other than him, anybody else that you recall? Answer: I don't recall. Question: did you keep any notes of the meeting? And this is really interesting here. Did you keep any notes of the meeting? Answer: no, I did not. Question: to your knowledge, did Mr. Griesbach? Answer: I don't know if he did or not. You'd have to ask him. Question: was there a reason that you didn't keep any notes of the meeting? Answer: I just didn't. Remember, folks, this guy's an experienced criminal defense attorney. He's been out of law school for at least 13 years. So he's not a dummy. Why, he's going to all these different meetings. Why would he not memorialize at least some part of that to protect himself? I mean, just a question. Anyway, moving on. Question: in the conversations that you had with Ms. Peterson and Ms. Badker, did you keep any notes of that? Answer: no, I did not. Question: do you recall whether before you went to the Madison meet at the Attorney General's office, Mr. Finley had made a public demand that there be an investigation of what happened in the Stephen Avery prosecution? Answer: he may have done that. I don't recall when he made that request. Question: do you have any recollection of whether before you went to Madison, the Attorney General had made a statement that she could not conduct such an investigation because she didn't have any statutory authority to do so? Answer: I don't recall that. Question: do you recall anything that having like that occurred? Answer: there was thought initially that there may have been a potential conflict of interest that they couldn't do the investigation. Question: what was the conflict of interest that was perceived at that time? Answer: the Attorney General's office had done the appellate work on the original case. Question: at a point in time, you made a formal request of the Attorney General's office to review the circumstances of the arrest and prosecution of Stephen Avery. Is that right? Answer: I did. I'll show you now what's been marked as Exhibit 1. Is that the request? Yes. Question: that request was made after the meeting in Madison. Is that right? I don't recall. I believe we had discussed them doing a review at the time of the meeting, and that was that it was decided that they would be doing a review before we went down there. The reason is why we had to give it a special prosecution basis for it, and I think that's the reason. What's there in there is 978.06. Question. So when you were in Madison, you talked about 978.06 as the basis for your request. Answer. We talked about them doing a review, and they needed to have a written request as you have in front of you. So we're going to move on past this a little bit. Oops.
Jack,
Yeah,
the I don't recall jokes are hysterical in the chat. You'll have
oh,
to
I can't.
watch this at a later time.
You people,
Yeah.
you guys haven't seen nothing yet. You wait. You wait like get on further down in this
Oh,
document.
everybody's having a great time with it. Do you remember to breathe? I don't recall. Do you remember to tie your shoes? I don't recall. Wife flap, you wed this woman? I don't recall. Yeah, they're everywhere.
Did you kill Kennedy? I don't recall.
Yeah. Yeah.
Did you remember to put your shoes on when you got out of bed? I don't recall. Yeah, we can read a little bit right here. They were arguing. They were talking a little bit about the statutory requirements and all that above. I'm not going to read all that. Anyway, question. Okay, at any time before you authored this September 18th, 2003 correspondence, did you talk with any representative of the Attorney General's office about the potential civil liability for the Manitowoc County in connection with the prosecution and conviction of Stephen Avery? Answer, I may have. Question, did you discuss with Mr. that with Mr. Tinker? Answer, I may have. I don't recall. Question, did you discuss with that with Mr. Barr at all? Answer, not that I recall, no. And remember, Mr. Bauer, however you say his name, he and Tom Fallon basically demanded that a lot of, well, at least a good chunk of the everything that Peg Lautenschlager got. I'm not saying she didn't know about it, but I'm saying that the statement that she put out about the Manitowoc County Sheriff's Department, they demanded that a lot of it be gutted. They did not want it in there at all. And that Jennifer Nash Holden, that Monica Burkhart Brisk, I think they were played a part, especially, well, just amongst the four of them, it got a lot of the stuff got gutted out. But it's even more than that, and you'll see as we move on in my conclusions. Anyway, did you discuss that with Peg Lautenschlager? This is talking about civil liability for Manitowoc County. Answer, I may have. I don't recall. Question, all right, before you went up to Madison with Mr. Griesbach, did you have any discussions with Mr. Rollins about the potential civil liability for Manitowoc County in connection with the prosecution and conviction of Stephen Avery? Answer, I may have, yes. I can't tell you who Rollins is. I think he might have been a county lawyer, but I could be wrong. I can't remember where he fell into place here. Okay. Question. Okay. Tell me what you recall that discussion. Answer. I don't recall the discussion other than that was a potential thing that we saw and could potentially happen here. Question. And was part of that your discussion that in order to deal with the issues of potential civil liability, you would have to ask an investigation done by the Attorney General? I don't recall if I told that to Mr. Rollins. I may have. Okay. Question. Okay. In fact, he may have suggested it to you. Answer. No, that was my decision. I made that on my own. Question. Okay. Answer. No one made that suggestion to it but me. Question. Okay. Answer. You were fearful. I think they got this wrong here. I think that's a question. You're fearful of the potential liability of the Manitowoc County in respect to what had happened to Mr. Avery. Answer, I was not fearful of it. Question, no, but you were concerned about it. Answer, I wasn't concerned about it. Question, you didn't care about it? Answer, not that I didn't care about it, but it wasn't my situation to worry about My job was to preserve the integrity of the file in my office. Question, well, your job went beyond that in your own mind because you asked for this investigation to be done, right? Answer, that's part of the integrity of my office, so I don't think this is going beyond that. Question, so you were concerned about the integrity of your office? Answer, to have an independent investigation done. Question, what was it about your office's integrity that you were concerned about? Answer, I just wanted an independent review. Question, okay. Answer, that's all. Question, had Mr. Griesbach expressed any opinion about your behavior, about the behavior of Mr. Vogel at the time you made the request of the Attorney General? Answer, he may have prepared a memo about a conversation he had with Mr. Vogel. I don't recall its contents. Question, I knew he did that, but I'm asking whether or not he talked with you at all about any concerns that he personally had about how Vogel had handled the case. Answer, I don't recall those conversations. Question, did they take place at all? Of course, asked and answered. Answer, I don't recall what he said. By Mr. Kelly. Question, was there such a conversation? Answer, there may have been, yes. Question, okay, tell me, to your best recollection, it doesn't have to be precise or exact, what Mr. Griesbach said to you about that. Another objection. Answer, I don't recall what Mike said during the conversation, other than he had a telephone conversation with Vogel. That's all I remember at this time. All I remember at this time. That means he's going to remember more later? Maybe we should have another deposition. Question, well, he was upset about the conversation with Vogel, wasn't he? Answer, I don't recall if he was upset or not. Question, he didn't like what Vogel was doing, and he told you that. Is that right? Answer, I don't recall him saying that, no. Question, okay, did you ever talk to Janine Geske before you went to see the Attorney General's office? Answer, I believe Mike may have done that. Question, did he report to you on the conversation that you had with Mr. Geske? Answer, he may have. Question, what did he tell you? Answer, I don't recall. I can't believe he would not recall that. Question, do you recall anything about what he told you concerning that? Answer, no, not at this time. Okay, let's see. Here's an exhibit 124.
What is it not at this time stuff? I'm just.
Well, I don't know. Yeah, maybe he just felt like he should change it up because he sounded like a robot.
Yeah.
Like I said, he'll have all the details and all the memory of it when he writes his book.
Just crazy to me. It's how they even allow that to be done.
Well, it gets even better. But again, just remembering he's an experienced lawyer, so he doesn't want to lay any foundation for any potential whatever in the future, liability.
When did he start saying not at this time? Was it after they started showing him exhibits? Because then he's like, maybe there's an exhibit, so not at this time. Maybe if you show me the exhibit, I'll remember.
Well, I mean, I know you're kind of being a little facetious there, but it really kind of started here in the last probably 10 or 15 pages.
When he started getting shown exhibits.
Well, yeah, but he was showing exhibits. I think he was showing at least one or two in part one. I can't remember, but regardless, he really started this at this time business here more along in the last 10 or 15 pages. So
you don't look like such an idiot. You mean by I don't?
Yeah,
but we're fixing the word.
We're fixing to get
Yours
into.
Says maybe tomorrow.
Yeah, exactly. But we're fixing to get into Exhibit 124, and this is, if I'm correct here, I think I'm right. This is the Douglas Jones memo that was written. Jones sent this memo to Mark Rohr. So, are there any questions or any comments we need to talk about for a minute before I move on?
Maybe he needed a third deposition for that time. He would.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I still think he would say I don't recall, but anyway. Okay, let's move on. Question. Okay, let me show you what's been marked as Exhibit 124. Take a moment, if you would, and examine that. Answer. I'm familiar with that document. Question. Okay, who's Douglas Jones? Answer. Assistant District Attorney from Manitowoc County. Question. All right. What is this memo to your understanding? Answer, it speaks for itself. He had a telephone conversation with Jean Couchet, the pencil, about the case. I'm sorry, I pronounced that wrong. Jean, the pencil, Couchet. Question, all right, this memo is dated the same day that your letter to the Attorney General is dated, September 18th. Do you see that? Yes, I do. Question, do you recall whether or not Mr. Jones provided this memo to you before or after you wrote your letter to the Attorney General? And can you believe it? He doesn't recall. Question, okay, in this memo, Mr. Jones says, in talking with Jean Couchet, Couchet told Jones that in 95 or 96, Colburn had told Kosoric that an officer from Brown County had told Colburn that Greg Allen and not Stephen Avery may have actually committed the Bernstein assault. Do you see that? The language that you're reading is about might have actually committed the Bernstein assault. Is that the reference you're making? I'm starting on the sentence. Let's read it into the record. He then told me, quotation points, he then told me, close, and the he refers to Jean Couchet. He then told me that in 95 or 96, Andy Colburn had told Tom Kosoric, former Manitowoc County Sheriff, that an officer from Brown County had told Colburn that Allen and not Avery might have actually committed the Bernstein assault. Jean stated that Colburn was told by Kosoric something to the effect that we already have the right guy and he should not concern himself. So is this the information that's being provided to you on September 18th by Doug Jones, right? Answer, that's correct. Question, did you provide this information to the Attorney General's office? Answer, yes, my recollection is I believe we did. Question, and who's we? Answer, Mike Griesbach and I when we went to Madison. Question, but this memo was drafted after you had been to Madison. Oh, really? Answer, I'm not sure of the day we were in Madison. Maybe you should have kept some notes, Dick. Question, well, answer, I'd have to look at the record and to see when we went. Question, exhibit number 1, September 18th is when you write the letter following the decision that's made about the statutory basis that you're going to seek for the investigation. Answer, again, I apologize. I do not know whether or not this was done at the same time that we went with the Attorney General or before. I don't have the precise date in mind when we met with the Attorney General. It was this time. It was around this time. Question, okay, so you're telling me that you don't remember whether or not you had the information in Exhibit 124 when you went to Madison? Answer, my recollection is I believe that I did, but I'm not certain. Question, and you're saying that you told that information to the Attorney General's office? Answer, we passed everything that we obtained to the Attorney General's office. Which again, this is a sticking point for me because you're going to find out later that, well, same things that just didn't quite make it to the Attorney General. Okay, well, whether neither this memo nor anything about the Colburn link is in any of the records that were provided to the Attorney General's office, I can tell you that. Does that give you any concern about whether or not you provided this information? That is to say, the information in Exhibit 124 to the Attorney General's office? Answer, and again, it's my recollection that we did do that. And I don't know for sure, but my recollection at this time. Question, well, there's only 2 people in the we. It's you and Mike Griesbach, right? And they go on about that, about going to, those 2 went to Madison. Okay, and when you and Mike were there, you met with certain people in the Attorney General's office. You told us about that, right? Answer, correct. Question, so if this information provided to the Attorney General's office, either you did it or Mike Griesbach did it, is in your best recollection? Answer, from my recollection, I believe that's what was done. I'm not certain, but again, I just have a vague recollection that was done. Question, did you personally give that information to Peg Lawton Slower? Answer, we turned everything over the entire Avery file to question. I know that. I'm asking you about your conversation, interruption by a lawyer. He's talking about being courteous, and this, Roar's sitting there saying, I don't recall about everything under the sun. So, I got an answer for that, and it's not a nice one.
So did he get the memo? Didn't they get the memo the same day, the September 18th, the same day
Yes.
they went out there? So is it possible that the memo was not, he did not obtain it until after he went there, so that he didn't have to bring it? And like, he didn't mention any of this about Colburn and Link to them. It seems like that wasn't in his record. And if it was, nobody took any notes, so we really don't know, right? So
that was Kelly's point. That was Kelly's point. He's saying
you only brought what you obtained, as in a file, paper file. Nothing. He didn't share anything that he had in his brain. It sounds like he knew. I was wrong about who told him. It was Doug Jones who got told by Koosh about Link and Colbert. But
correct.
Roar
That's right.
may have found out by Ken Peterson, like you said.
Well, yeah. I mean, he said earlier that he already knew about it when Jones talked to him. But the thing is that
he knew about it on the 11th, right? Like Jones did at least. So that means Roar and them all probably knew around the same time. The day that he was released.
Yeah, to the point of this right here, he's trying to make is that you couldn't have taken everything because this other stuff didn't. According to this didn't happen until after you went to Madison. So how could they know about it?
Because it wasn't in the Avery file.
Right. Exactly. Exactly.
Right. Things that didn't get there.
Well, there's more that didn't get there too, and we'll get to that. So, any questions, concerns? We can go ahead and stop and rest. We're about 10 more pages in. So, no. Okay. He apologized for getting
right. Joke.
I don't recall. I can hear Stacy now. Anyway, I'll move on from that. I know whatever Stacy comes up with.
Nobody remembers how to do anything.
I know whatever Stacy comes up
button, so.
it's gonna be fantastic. So anyway, Mr. Kelly apologizes. Let me withdraw and ask another way. Question: you told us on that day that you met with the Attorney General. Answer: and again, and I don't recall the date that I met with the Attorney General. Don't you think that would be kind of an important date to jot down somewhere? I think, even as a prosecutor, I'm going to go meet with the Attorney General. I'm going to make a few notes. Oh no, not this guy.
The fact that he can't recall anything is a sign that he needs to take notes.
Clearly, have a recorder with him. Question: did you personally provide the information in Exhibit 124 that we're talking about here that I've read into the record to the Attorney General? Answer: to my recollection, I could be wrong. I believe we turned over. This was contained within the materials we turned over to the Attorney General. We turned over the entire file, as I stated earlier. And see, to me, he's dancing all the way around this right here because he knows damn well he didn't do it. He didn't do it. I don't believe him. Okay, let's see. Let me try to help. The question was, did you give this information, not this document? Did you give this? If I understand the question, did you give this information to the Attorney General? So now this lawyer for him is trying to justify what he's trying to say. And yes or no, yes or you don't know. I mean, whatever. Answer: I don't know. I'm saying from my recollection, I believe we did. Okay. Question: did you give it to her in oral form, or did you turn this document, Exhibit 24, over to her? Answer: I don't. And of course, here comes another lawyer. Answer: I don't recall if it was oral or the whole file, sir. Question: do you have any belief that you, as you sit here today, as to whether or not you or Mr. Mike Griesbach at any point in time turned over Exhibit 124 to any representative of the Attorney General's office? Answer: I believe we had done so, but I'm not certain. Question: okay, apart from the document, do you have any recollection of whether you or Mr. Mike Griesbach provided the representatives of the Attorney General's office the information that's contained in Exhibit 124 that we've read into the record about what Couchet found out about Colburn and Link? Answer again, we may have. Question, but you don't recall. Answer, I don't recall. I don't recall what we may have. Question, when you received this information from Douglas Jones on September 18th, that's set forth in Exhibit 124, yes? Was it disturbing to you that the information reported that Kosarik had said something to the effect that we've already have the right guy and he should not concern himself? Oh, I didn't have an opinion about whether or not it was disturbing to me or not. Really? A question, had you received at that time from any other source information that Kosarik was taking that position generally with regard to any other suspect in the Stephen Avery case? That he had the right guy. Don't concern yourself about anybody else. Had you received that information from any other source that this Exhibit 124 at the time that you received this Exhibit 124? Shocker, he doesn't recall. In the meeting that took place in Ken Peterson's office at the Sheriff's Department, had anybody provided any information of that kind to you? Answer of what kind, please? Question of the kind that when Sheriff Kosarik was provided information about Gregory Allen or some other suspect in the Penny Bernstein sexual assault, he was taking the position, don't worry about it, we've got the right guy. Answer, did anyone say during that meeting, is that your question? Question, or words to that effect? Answer, they may have, I don't recall. And off the record, looking through here, I think we can skip a little bit. Yeah, they're talking about the Peg Lawton Slower, I think. Mr. Rohr, in response to the formal request that you made, you've identified Exhibit 1, number 1 was ultimately a report issued in December by the Attorney General's office. If I could see it, it may refresh my recollection when it was issued. I'll show Exhibit 6. Okay, I do recognize Exhibit 6, sir. Question, okay, and what's your recollection about it and being in December? It's dated December of 2003. Okay. Answer, I recognize that report. Question, all right, at any time when you first heard from the woman at the crime lab, remember, this is when he got really involved. This is in part 1. Woman at the crime lab, and when you received Exhibit 6, the report, did you have any discussion with Jim Fitzgerald about the Stephen Avery case? And remember, Jim Fitzgerald was the prior district attorney that Rohr took over from. He says no. Question, again, during that same period of time, we're talking about between September 3rd and December 17th, did you talk with Dennis Vogel? No. At any time during that period of time, did you talk with Tom Kosarik? Answer, yes. On how many occasions? Answer, I do not know. Question, more than one? Answer, I do not know. Question, at least one? Answer, yes. Where was the one that you recall? Answer, I don't recall. Question, how long did it last? Answer, less than an hour. Who was present? I don't recall. Well, it was at least you and Kosarik, right? Answer, yes. Okay, was there anyone else present? Answer, I don't recall. You notice I'm highlighting that I don't recall here? Question, was
this one goes on. I don't recall.
Yeah, that's why I did it. Question, was Mike Griesbach present? I don't recall. Question, what was the occasion for the conversation with Kosarik? How did it come about? How did that meeting come about? Answer, I don't recall. Was it initiated by you? Answer, I don't recall. Was it initiated by Mr. Kosarik? Answer, I don't recall. Question, did you talk about the Stephen Avery case? Answer, yes. Question, tell me everything you recall that you talked about with him. Answer, I don't recall what he said. Question, you recall nothing of the meeting? Answer, I recall that a meeting took place. We discussed Stephen Avery. I don't recall. Question, did you discuss Gregory Allen? Answer, may have. Did you discuss Tom Bergner? And Tom Bergner was the assistant chief police or something of that nature at the Manitowoc County City Police Department. So everybody knows. Answer, I don't recall. Did you discuss what you have been told at the meeting with Ken Peterson? Answer, I don't recall. Question, did you discuss what Brenda Peterson and Beverly Badker had told you? Answer, I don't recall. Question, did you make any notes of your meeting with Kosoric? Answer, I did not. Again, no notes. Question, is there any reason why you didn't? Answer, I just didn't. Question, all right, you knew that there was an investigation going on at the time by the Department of Justice concerning Mr. Kosorik's behavior, right? Answer, I don't recall when I had a meeting with Mr. Kosorik as it related to the investigation. Question, well, we've already discussed it. In fact, that it took place sometime between when you received the information from the crime lab and when the report was issued, right? Answer, correct. So are you saying that the conversation with Kosorik took place for sometime between September 3rd and September 18th? Answer, that's possible, yes. Okay, so at the time of that period, which we were talking about with Mr. Tinker about your concerns respecting Stephen Avery prosecution, right? Answer, concerns with information I received in regard to the Stephen Avery prosecution. Well, answer, based on the exhibit that you showed me earlier. Question, Exhibit 5 that we've already discussed, I'm going to read this paragraph to you. It follows the paragraph we read earlier. It says, D.A. Rohr expressed his concerns about these allegations to the Attorney General's office and requested an independent review. The focus of this review would be to determine if Allen had ever been a suspect in this investigation and, if so, was this information turned over to the defense attorneys as part of the discovery procedure? Okay, so that is something that you were told at the Attorney General's office that you wanted. And of course, another objection. Question, is that right? I don't recall precisely what I said, but if that's what Mr. Tinker stated that I said, I have no reason to doubt him. As part of whether the concern about whether or not the information concerning Gregory Allen was handled properly in the prosecution, to your knowledge, at that time, that is to say, at that time, your meeting at the Attorney General's office concerned the behavior of the former Sheriff Kosorik. Is that right? Another objection. If you could repeat the question. He repeats the question to again, I just wanted to make sure that an independent review was done on the file to make sure everything was handled properly was my concern. Let's move on here. And it's a time question. And at the time you talked to Kosorik, you were an experienced criminal lawyer, right? Yes. Question, yet you made no notes of your conversation with Kosorik. He made no notes with anyone. This is clear, at least according to what he's telling everyone. Question, is that right? Answer, as I stated earlier, I did not make notes. No. Question, okay, can you tell me why? Answer, I just didn't make notes. Question, well, I know you just didn't make notes, but I'm asking you what your state of mind was at the time as to why you did not make notes. Answer, I just didn't make the notes. Okay, he's asking if when he went to the Attorney General's office, if he told him about the conversation with Tom Kosorik. I don't recall. Did you tell the representatives of the Attorney General's office about the conversation that you had with Sheriff Peterson? I don't recall. And this goes on talking about. Okay, anytime when you first received the phone call from a representative from the crime lab on December 17th, when the report was published by the Attorney General, did you talk to Ms. Bernstein? Yes. On how many occasions? I don't recall. More than one? At least once. Question, okay, was it once in person or by phone? Answer, what were the dates again, please? Question, between September 3rd and December 17th of 2003. Answer, I don't recall if it was on the phone or in person. Question, who initiated the contact? Answer, I don't recall. Question, what was the reason for the contact? Answer, I don't recall. Question, what did Ms. Bernstein say to you? Answer, I don't recall. And then he says, she was pleased with how I was handling the case. That I do recall. Question, what did... yeah, tell me about that. I wonder if he made it. I don't recall that.
Laugh. He remembers the good stuff that he's praised, but not any information on the case that he is concerned about that he's bringing to the DOJ because he has concerns, but he doesn't know what any of those concerns are.
Yeah,
Exactly.
It's so, he's just, to me, I'm sorry to say that he's just being a dick. That's just my opinion. He didn't make notes and he doesn't recall any of these.
Catnip said,
being told that he was doing a good job.
Catnip said CYA syndrome.
Well, Catnip's right. There's no doubt. He's just trying to, close ranks on himself and, keep himself completely out of it. From one standpoint,
And
I don't kind of blame him, but what's that, BB?
oh, and the good doc is in the house now, and he said pretty much the same thing. That they're covering their ass.
Woohoo! Welcome,
Yeah.
Doc. Yeah, oh yeah, it's terrible. I understand why he wanted to protect himself because the extension from him is the county, and this got plopped in his
Colette
lap.
wants to know if anyone can recall what Jay Jax is reading.
I was just going to be a smartass and tell her I don't recall, Colette.
Yeah, or we could get Rhonda. Is Rhonda still here? She could say, "Can you
No,
repeat the question?"
I don't recall jokes are still going crazy. Everybody's.
Can you repeat the question? That's another good one, Nicole.
I actually have a question for you guys about Mark Rohr because he technically did not win the DA position. He was appointed right. as a DA after Mike Griesbach, who did win, turned it down. Do you think that was all because they knew Avery was testing that evidence in September or June of 2002 while the election for DA is happening?
That's right.
Do you think that they put him in there on purpose?
There were a number of people that submitted their name to the attorney or the governor, to Jim Dole. So I don't know how that process worked out, why he got picked, but yeah.
Well, why would you run for something and then as soon as you get it,
claim medical reasons? That's what he claimed. Reasons.
Yeah. Well,
I think
that's just all weird to me. Like he might have had a better chance at winning, but they didn't want him in office, so they had him run and then put somebody they wanted in there. I don't know. It always seems so suspicious to me that he won, and then declined it. And then that's who we have as the lawyer on this case, who doesn't even take notes of meetings he's having. What a great choice to put in there.
Well, see that, and that's another point that you're making there is because he was, involved in the 85 case, and I'm talking about Griesbach, and throughout. So I don't know. Maybe they were looking at potential liability for the county.
I don't think Griesbach was involved in the 85 case because I don't think he graduated until 85 or 88.
I thought he had some involvement in there. Maybe I'm wrong.
I'm not sure. I'll have to double check that.
Well, regardless, I still, to your point again, even if he wasn't involved, I still think there was some political motivations in putting Rohr in there. I could be wrong. That's speculation. I don't know. But anyway, okay, let's move on.
They also that other guy, Jim Fitzgerald or whatever his name was, that was the DA. He's the one that opened the blood vial and wrote the little note on it. That was the DA before. That DA ended up having problems of his own in 2007, practicing as a lawyer when he did not have a license to practice because of dues he owed. So
after he
I
left,
wonder if they were trying to get him out of office somehow, too. Maybe something about that as well. I don't know.
They talked a little bit about in part one about Fitzgerald. I didn't really cover it too much, but apparently, after he lost, he left Manitowoc and he worked as assistant assistant DAs in a couple of places and some other things that didn't bode well for him. I don't know, but yeah,
Well,
Like when
what
they put in the trial that, you know, like Kratz, I said, and it says something like, if we call Fitzgerald in, he will testify that he opened the blood because they, you know, his lawyers, Stephen's lawyers, were testing the evidence and they didn't know what was in it, and then he wrote on it, right?
Right.
But the truth is they didn't want him to testify because he was already having problems of his own. He was already practicing law without his license in 2007.
Yeah, they were trying to. Well, I mean, I think
He
they
probably didn't recall he had didn't have a license.
and you didn't take any notes about it.
His new job, what did he put on his application? I'm sorry, I don't recall.
Yeah, really. Anyway, okay, let's move on. We got about
Roar definitely needs his name and address sold into his underwear.
Oh my goodness, yeah, his T-shirt too, and he probably needs a cowbell tied around him because he doesn't recall anything. Poor guy.
Right.
Anyway, now talking about the Bernstein call. Question: did she tell you anything about how disturbed she was that it turned out that it was Gregory Allen who had attacked? Objection. Answer: I don't recall that being said. Question: did she tell you anything about the contact that she had received from Thomas Bergner at the time of the events in question after she'd been attacked and before the actual trial? Another objection, because they don't want this in here at all. Remember, Bergner worked for the city police in Manitowoc, not the county. Another objection from Mr. Pollan. Answer: I apologize because of the objections. May I have the question? Sure. Did Penny Bernstein, in her conversation with you, tell you anything about any information she had received from Tom Bergner concerning another possible assailant than Stephen Avery at the period of time between when she attacked her, or she was attacked, and when the trial began? Answer: I don't recall. Question: did she tell you anything about a phone call that she had received at home from a City of Manitowoc police officer raising the question of whether or not Stephen Avery was the proper defendant in the case? Answer: I don't recall. Question: do you have any recollection of anything that she told you? Answer: as I stated earlier, she was pleased with how I was handling the case and complimented me on that. Well, that's nice. Question: did anything else that you remember that she told you? Answer: well, she was upset with the fact that Stephen Avery was convicted. Question: did she tell you why she was upset? Answer: I don't recall. Question: did she tell you anything about her concerns as to how the sheriff conducted himself? Answer: I don't recall. Question: is there anything further that you recall from the conversation with Ms. Bernstein? Answer: no. Question: what was it that she did that she was so pleased with? And question: as she expressed it to you? Well, answer: well, how professionally we handled the situation, how quickly we moved on the situation, how thorough we were with the situation. She was very pleased with that. Jesus Christ. Question: well, you didn't do anything, did you? You just asked the Attorney General to conduct an investigation. Of course, we get into objections, lawyers jumping in. That's a little snotty, Mr. McCambridge says. Question: what was it about your behavior that she liked? Answer: I already answered that question. I said that she was pleased with how we handled ourselves with the situation, how professional. Question: who's we? Answer: Mike and I. Question: did you tell her anything about what you had found out in the course of your discussions with Kasorek, Peterson, or any other representatives of the Sheriff's Department? Answer: I don't recall. Question: at any time between September 3rd, when you received the information that you did from the crime lab, and December 17th, did you have any discussions with any representatives of the City of Manitowoc? Answer: yes. Question: with whom? Answer: Perry Kingsbury and Tom Bergner. Perry Kingsbury was the chief of police Tom Bergner worked directly below him. Question, did Chief of Police in Manitowoc County, or Manitowoc City, I don't want to confuse anyone. These guys, Perry and Tom Bergner, worked for the city. Question, did you meet them together or separately? Answer, my recollection is they were together. Question, where did the meeting take place? A, City of Manitowoc Police Department. Question, did it take place before you went to the Attorney General's office or after? Answer, I don't recall. Question, do you recall whether the information that you received in the meeting that you had done with these people was information you provided to the Attorney General's office? Answer, myself or Mr. Griesbach? Question, Mr. Griesbach was at the meeting as well? Answer, yes. Question, was there anyone else at the meeting? From my recollection, I don't recall other than those 4 people. Question, was Jim Weiss at the meeting? I don't know who that is. Answer, no. Question, what was the occasion for the meeting? How did it come about? Answer, I don't recall. Question, did you ask for the meeting or did they volunteer to meet with you? Answer, I asked for the meeting. Question, and why did you ask for the meeting? Answer, to discuss the case. Question, well, why discuss the case as to them? What knowledge did you have that caused you to want to meet with Perry Kingsbury and Tom Bergner? Answer, I don't recall. He called for the meeting and he doesn't know why he called for it. Really? Question, did you have any information about Tom Bergner at the time you called for the meeting? Answer, I don't recall. Question, well, how did you select him to be involved in the meeting? Answer, he was just there. Question, whom had you contacted to have the meeting? Answer, I believe myself or Mike Griesbach contacted Perry Kingsbury. And did this take place after the meeting that you had at Ken Peterson's office? Answer, I don't recall. Question, what prompted you or Mike Griesbach to call for this meeting? Answer, to discuss the case. Question, what did Tom Bergner tell you at the meeting? Answer, he mentioned Gregory Allen's name, that they were doing surveillance on him at the time that this incident took place. Question, anything further? Answer, that's all I recall at this time. Question, did he tell you that he had talked to Tom Kasorek about the surveillance that they had been doing of Gregory Allen? Answer, I don't recall. Question, did he provide to you with any of the documents from the investigation of Gregory Allen that they had been conducting at the time? Answer, I don't recall. Question, did he tell you that he provided extensive documentary information to Perry Kingsbury about the investigation that was being conducted of Gregory Allen at the time that Penny Bernstein was assaulted? Answer, I recall a file being present during the meeting that was discussed. He just said he didn't recall any paperwork, and now he does. Question, did Kingsbury say anything to you at this meeting about what his reaction had been when Bergner produced that file and gave it to him? Answer, I don't recall. Do you remember anything being said where Kingsbury said, hey, I don't want it, or anything like that? Answer, I don't recall. Question, did you ask to see the file? Answer, I don't recall. Did you in fact see the file? Answer, I don't recall. Question, did you see any of the investigatory reports that were made concerning Gregory Allen for the period of time between January of 1985 and August 2nd of 1985 by members of the City of Manitowoc Police Department? Answer, I don't recall. Question, do you recall whether you looked at any of the documents at that meeting? Answer, we may have looked at some of the reports in there. Question, did Bergner tell you that they had put Allen on specifically under surveillance for the period of time between 14th of July and the 2nd of August, 1985, because they perceived him to be extremely dangerous with respect to sexual violence? Answer, I don't recall. Question, anything further you recall of that conversation between you, Griesbach, Kingsbury, and Bergner at that meeting? Answer, I think they may have been a code name for Allen at the time, which I didn't know. that it was brought up, but I don't recall the code name. Question, the Sandman? I'd heard that before, but it's been a long time. Answer, I don't recall. Does that ring a bell at all? Answer, all I know is that there was a code name they had for it. Question, did you make any arrangement, any memorandum concerning that meeting? Answer, no, I did not. Question, to your knowledge, did Mr. Griesbach make any memorandum? I don't know. Let's move on here. After that meeting, did you have any discussions with Jim Weiss about the Stephen Avery prosecution? No. Have you to this day had any such discussions? Answer, no. To your knowledge, has Mr. Rollins? Answer, I don't know. Again, I don't know who that Jim Weiss is. I'd have to look that up. I'm pretty sure that Rollins is a corporate lawyer, though. Question, after you received the information from the crime lab on September 3rd, did you talk with Judge Hazelwood about this case at all? Answer, yes. On how many occasions? Answer, I don't know. Question, did you talk to him about Gregory Allen at all? Answer, yes. Question, was Mr. Griesbach with you on any of the occasions in which you talked to Judge Hazelwood about the case? Answer, yes. Question, was it an in-person meeting or was it a meeting that took place all over the phone? Answer, in person. Question, on more than one? One or more than one? Answer, more than one. Question, it took place in the judge's chambers or elsewhere? Answer, judge's chambers and his office. Okay, more than 2 meetings? Answer, I don't recall. Question, all right. Was information that you have received from Berger and Kingsbury discussed with Judge Hazelwood? Answer, that I received? Question, well, that you and Griesbach received when you met with him? Answer, I don't recall. Question, was the fact that Bergner and the Manitowoc City Department had been surveilling Gregory Allen information that you discussed with Judge Hazelwood? Answer, I don't recall. Question, what do you recall the discussion between you, Griesbach, and Judge Hazelwood about the Stephen Avery case? Answer, we let him know about the results of the DNA. We let him know that we had reviewed the file and it was in our intention to dismiss the case. That's all I recall. Question, so this would be the first meeting with Judge Hazelwood that took place before you actually filed the informal papers concerning the dismissal? Answer, yes. Question, and that dismissal, I can tell you, took place on the 10th of September, 2003, okay? Is that all right? Answer, if that's the date that I saw the document, I would have no reason to doubt you. Question, did you have a second meeting with Judge Hazelwood after the case was dismissed? Answer, we may have had a meeting before another meeting, before the case was dismissed or after. I don't recall. Question, did any meetings with Judge Hazelwood concerning the case after you went to the Attorney General's office with Mr. Griesbach? Answer, I don't recall. We may have. Question, do you recall at any time talking with Judge Hazelwood about the information that you had found from Mr. Bergner about Gregory Allen? Answer, I don't recall. Question, at any time after you received the call from the crime lab, did you have any discussions with Jim Bogert about this case? Everyone remembers who Jim Bogert is, right? Or not? I'll refresh your memory. If I'm going to say this, I hope I'm right. I think I am. Jim Bogert took over Avery's 85 case way back in the day from, I can't remember her name. There was another lawyer, or maybe he was the original lawyer. I don't know. I just know that he was one of Avery's lawyers back in 85, during the 85 case. I can't remember if he had it and then someone else took it over or someone else had it and he took it over. But regardless, he's involved.
Didn't that chick have it first? That one lawyer girl, that woman girl?
And she got sick and then he took it over.
I think someone took over for her.
Yeah, it was him. It was Bogert. Yeah, I think that's correct. I think she had it and then she got sick or something and he took it over. I think that's right. But anyway, Roar called him. Question, on how many occasions? At least one. Question, in person or by phone? By phone. Question, who initiated the call? Answer, I did. Judge Hazelwood suggested that I do that. He's got to be the trial lawyer because I don't think there'd be any other reason for him to call him. Question, was it before or after you got the dismissal or file in the papers from the dismissal for the case? Answer, I believe it was before. Didn't talk to him again. Trying to move on here past some stuff that we don't really did. It's just all in here anyway. Yeah, we can start right here. Okay, at any time after you received information that received from the Crown Lab, did you have any conversation with Richard Bray about the, I think you pronounced it incorrectly, about the Stephen Avery case? Answer, not that I recall. After September 3rd, when you got the information, from the Crown Lab, did you ever talk to Tom Bernstein? Of course, that's Penny's husband. No, excuse me, no. And then, we're getting towards the end here. This is pretty much the end of the record. Yeah, that's it. That's it for this. So, I'm going to let you guys talk for a minute, and I'm going to pull up some information while you're chatting, and we can take questions from.
I know what happened to Roar. They used one of the Men in Black pens on him. That's why he doesn't remember it. They wiped his memory.
You know what? He wouldn't recall if they did.
Hey, Colin Techie says, I got to tell you, it's hard to listen to. This guy is supposed to be a law enforcement. How is this acceptable? I totally 100%. I do not even understand. I mean, I know he's a lawyer and he's not trying to say, thing that.
No, he recalls. I mean, he recalls saying it on the back. He recalls.
It says that many times saying that is just like Epstein. I plead the fifth. I want to use my rights. I plead the fifth. That's all he did in his. So to me, it just is admitting they're that they do, and there is something shady, and they are covering that up.
He barely recalled when he graduated college.
I think it's terrible. You think about this guy, like I said twice now, he's an experienced lawyer. And he goes into this again. I understand he basically gets thrown to the wolves, getting this piled into him. He wasn't involved at all in that case and any of the 85 stuff, but he does involve himself dramatically. And we're going to get a little bit more into that. When I say dramatically, because he did call for the investigation, but clearly there's information that was not turned over from their office, police files or whatever, to the Attorney General. And I'm going to give you a little bit more information of what I think and what I'd actually talked to Eric Banana Man. I don't know if everybody knows him. I've had several conversations with him about this particular deposition and the other one, and how a lot of that shook out to the Attorney General's office. He actually made, after last week's podcast, he actually made a Reddit post. I'm going to pull it up here in a minute. We're going to go through it. And this is his work. And I invited him to come on and talk about it himself. Because I don't.
He has been in the chat.
Yeah. He told me he'd be in the chat. And he didn't really want to do it. And I understand. That's all good. It's cool.
Why not?
Well, he's just not feeling it right now.
He's elusive.
Come on.
Yeah. He's got
practice for when you come on being nosy, and
he's got banana rum to make and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Well, now correct me if I'm wrong. Isn't Steve and Jody watching these depositions as they're happening?
Well, a good part of them, they're both there. Sometimes it's just Steve. Sometimes Jody's not there. But yeah.
Could you imagine him sitting there listening to this? I don't recall.
He's probably
his eyes must have been
his head a lot.
His eyes must have been rolling out of his head, and his head must have been shaking no the whole time. Shoulder shrugs.
Imagine if he said that during anything anybody asked him. Oh my gosh, they would have jumped over him like talking about call. Hi, Nosy. It was.
Hi.
Yeah. Oh, is Nosy here? Hi, Nosy.
Yeah, jump in.
Hi, I'm in class. I'm just listening. I can't really talk much.
Whoa, I bet that's tough. How's that work?
Well,
You play our podcast for your class, isn't it? Like criminal.
No. I'm writing a paper I have to turn in over something stupid. I mean, it's not stupid. Over a 10-year time span between two local criminal justice departments. And what's the difference between the two related to race and ethnicity, between their police department demographics and their arrest and victim demographics.
And we've got at least some of the points here, because we've got Manitowoc City Department, City Police, and Manitowoc County Police.
Oh,
and
every one of my classes, I use these cases. Yeah, totally.
You cheater.
Terrible dynamic between these guys. Anyway, I'm going to pop in here the Reddit post that Eric Banana Man made, and we're going to go through some of the points that he talked about in his post. So I can get that pulled up here. Everybody tell me when that pops in. I know there's a little delay. Everybody see that or no? I hope it comes in. Woo.
Now it did.
Okay. So basically, this is a follow-up conclusions. This is again talking about our podcast last week and some thoughts that that he had, in addition to Mark Rohr. Let's just go through bullet by bullet. Previously stated, Jennifer Nashole did most of the work on the eventually becoming the final report written on the investigation mistakes in the Avery 85 case. Again, Nashole was the one that collected reports from Amy Lehman and Deb Strauss. So she got them. She got to go through them, filter them, whatever. Bullet 2, Fallon and Bauer struck large sections of the Nashole draft that painted law enforcement and or the DOJ in a negative light. They removed all that stuff that made them look kind of pretty bad. Now, again, it's not to say that Peg Batchelor didn't know. I suspect she probably did know, but we can't prove that. But I think she knew. But what did they present to the public, right? Is that print large enough for everyone to see? Or do I need to zoom it in a little bit?
It's pretty small.
That better? You should come in there in a second.
It'll be a minute. Yeah.
I hate that delay, but hey, whatever it takes, right?
Right. Got to work around the system.
Yeah. It should be there about now.
Yeah, it changed. It's a little bit bigger.
And also make their screen bigger to see it better.
The next bullet. Because we read the whole file, interviews and reports, etc. Nashole suggested in one version of her draft that defense lawyers were partially to blame because they missed a report in the file of Gregory Allen incident near the same beach in 1983, 2 years earlier, and so missed an alternative suspect. Now, this was a whopper right here to me. This is a huge thing, and we're going to get a little bit more into that, and my conclusions about it a little bit later. This next bullet here, Fallon removes this suggestion. He says because Nashole didn't really understand what the defense lawyers should and could do. It's not part of their job to look for other suspects. But I do not believe that this is the reason for removing it. I believe he removed it because he had also read the file and knew the report about the Allen Beach incident had been removed when Avery's defense lawyers had the file. That's key. Remember, the civil defense lawyers were going after Rohr to find all these different files that the police reports that the city and county police had on Allen, especially the county. Next bullet. Peg Lunchlar at one point remembers reading in one of the drafts about the defense lawyers not picking up on the Allen Beach report and that they missed it as part of their finding an alternative suspect. Fallon and Barr dilute the final report so that most of the criticisms Nash Olmist raised are toned down or removed. It goes on Peg Lunchlar's office for sign. Although Peg's signature is on the final report, I believe she had a minimal input other than reading the odd draft. I'm not even sure that she fully read the final report and likely trusted her staff to sign off on it. When the final report does come out and is met with criticism and further action by Avery, I believe Peg panics and somewhat mentions to members of the Avery task force that the defense lawyers were partly to blame because they missed the Allen Beach report from 1983. Whether she forgot it had been taken out or she thought it was still in the report, I'm not sure. During the Avery's deposition, when others became aware of Peg's past, they realized that Avery would have dynamite information in regards to a lawsuit if it was true that Dennis Bogle or someone else had removed the 1983 Beach report from Avery's file, either partly, either prior to discovery or before the file was sent to the trial lawyer, Bogert. That evidence could have well been classed as exculpatory. Comments before I move to read the conclusion?
Could they have added, because I know Gregory Allen's file was in Avery's file. That's why Mike Griesbach and Rohr went to the DOJ. Could it be possible that they didn't actually add that file to his thing until 95 when they got the call about Gregory Allen being the perpetrator? You know, when they
from Brown County
in there in 85 to be even given to them, like that file. Like, didn't even Dennis Vogel say something to Mike Griesbach about that file being in there? Like, take that file out of there. Like it wasn't in there when they gave it to the defense at all.
Yeah, when Griesbach, if I remember right, Griesbach called Vogel, and he wasn't glad that they freed an innocent guy from rape charges. He was concerned about Avery, what was in Avery's file, if I'm recalling that correctly.
Because they probably added it in 95 I bet that's when they added it to his file. They probably looked over Gregory Allen's file when they got that call from Brown County.
I don't know, but the thing is that from my perspective, they had such difficulty in locating Allen's files. Apparently, it was pretty clear going through part 1 and part 2. Rohr had at least from what he's saying, they had a difficult time locating these older files because they're stored in the first part. They're stored in the office, and then when they run out of room, they go downstairs, and when the downstairs runs out of room.
In addition to what files were actually in his case files,
there were several.
There's more. I got you.
Yeah, there's several. It was like I'd have to go back. I didn't highlight it. Maybe I should have. I think it's in part 1. There are 4 different years that there was definitely an incident report created that there should have been a file for, and they couldn't get it, or they couldn't find it. So it begs the question: does somebody go through and say, "Hey, let's put this in over here in this other box where nobody's going to find it"? To me, it spells disaster for the DOJ, Manitowoc County. Because if this actually came out, they would have dynamite. And to blame the defense lawyer for not picking up on it, that's not their job.
But we don't even know if it was even in his file in 1985. It may not have been added until later.
Right.
So for them to even say that is ridiculous, in my opinion.
It's ridiculous to me. And it's also ridiculous
that they don't like to give over records. They're doing Brady violations even now.
Right. That's exactly right. But, again, I think that for, Wisconsin DOJ, if it, came out that, they got allegedly all this information about Gregory Allen, except this beach incident that happened a couple of years prior on this, how far away was it? About a mile from that same stretch of beach where Penny was attacked. It didn't come out and it wasn't included. I mean, come on. It's to me, it's just a powder keg for them. And maybe even to this day, it's a powder keg because it wasn't included in her statement to basically everyone to say, "Oh no, everything's fine. There's nothing,
Do
wrongful
you
going
think
on."
they told that other victim, the other victim on the beach, that they had a suspect for pennies that they thought was also her attacker?
I don't know. That would be interesting to find out because he did attack. I don't know. I can't remember her name, but yeah.
Eric Banana Man says, to his understanding, Vogel definitely had the 1983 bench report in his possession when he was complying to discovery for the PD or PB, excuse me, assault case.
See, there you go. And that
So
to me,
he
that,
had
that-
it, but he didn't include it in the file back then to the defense.
right. That's what I'm saying. He
withheld
he withheld it. Exactly. He knew about it, and he had to have known about it, but yet he still pursued Avery. So, people can decide what they want about that. I think that it was an intentional act. That's me. That's my
Did
personal
that
opinion.
case get prosecuted, or did he decide that there wasn't enough? Like it's the DA that decides to go back, find more information. Remember, he was under surveillance and stuff for stuff he was doing even in '85. So did it ever get prosecuted? Because
I don't think so. I don't. I think he was suspected.
The one to decide to not prosecute him, right?
Yeah, because if he had been prosecuted, he probably wouldn't have. He wouldn't have been able to attack Penny Bernstein.
Right. But so Eric says he prosecuted it, but what, he lost? He was found not guilty, or
I don't remember that case.
Well,
Banana Man.
Eric Banana Man might know.
Oh yeah.
Well, he had gotten a couple little jail scrapes, right?
Yep.
Yeah. And he was being looked at for a murder before or something.
Well, that's when he was in North Carolina. Yeah, he was a suspect.
In the charge in
83.
Yeah,
he lessened the charges. Yeah.
Of course he did.
He left North Carolina in the late 70s, early 80s and moved to the Manitowoc area. But when he left North Carolina, he had been a murder suspect in I think she was about 16-year-old girl that got killed.
Donna Emmel.
Definitely a teenager, yeah.
And she was in Newport Beach, North Carolina. I think it was, maybe that's wrong. She was in.
Eric said he toned down the charge.
Wow. So that left a liability door open, for, major liability in my opinion. But again, I think that it was completely left out, and for them not to look at him for this same attack, I mean, it's criminal to me. It's terrible. Anyway, let's read Eric's conclusions here. What Doc say?
He just says, was Alan a CI and hence protected?
Well,
if he was a CI, he would have had to be a CI for the sheriff's department, who didn't get along with the police department. They didn't, because the police department was actually surveillancing him.
Yep.
And Darkside says Alan even had the code name, Sandman.
That's what Glenn said. Yeah, or Kelly. That's what Kelly called him, the Sandman. And I'd heard that before a long time ago.
Is that because of his other attack on the beach?
Probably. He liked to maybe peruse around the beach. We don't have access to all the records where the city police followed him. So he may have been a beachcomber, and that's the reason they gave him the code name Sandman. I just don't know.
Maybe that's how he knew where Penny, didn't he know her phone number and where she lived? He knew she would just walk in the house. Maybe she was somebody she seemed like they go to the beach. She ran on the beach. Maybe he followed them home one time from the beach, and that's how he knew where she lived, because he was what did you call it, a beachcomber?
He was watching.
Yeah, because he called her. That's right, Linda. That's exactly right. He called her. So anyway, let's read Eric's conclusions here. Peg's input to the report was minimal. Her lack of knowledge regarding it led her to mistakenly mention how the defense lawyers were partially to blame because they missed an alternative suspects. This actually made the public the removal of possible exculpatory evidence. It is my belief that either before the depositions or during them, several people became aware that Peg had made her mistake and it could lead to the civil lawsuit being won by Avery and even possible further action on the closed criminal case. At that point, Peg and the DOJ were praying for something to stop Avery's lawsuit. Edit to add, I know a lot of people are always bringing up the multi-million-dollar payout Avery would have got from the civil suit. But for me, this has always been just as much about the ego, reputation, and feelings of those involved. People with standing in the community shown to be liars and cheats by someone as trashy, in their eyes, as Stephen Avery. And he's right. Although the lawsuit was a civil one, it was found that the DOJ ignored the removal of possible exculpatory evidence, then opened them up to being possibly investigated by an outside agency. If they had other skeletons in the closet, then they would have been desperate to avoid this. Finally, the depositions also made clear to me how significant Tom Fallon's role in the investigation in the 1985 case was, something that I had not really mentioned in MAM, not something not really mentioned in MAM. I think Fallon was happy for Kratz to take the limelight throughout the case because he didn't want people bringing up his connection to the 85 case investigation report. But I've no doubt he was playing just as dirty as Kratz. Behind the scenes, he may well have been pulling Kratz's strings without the sweaty one realizing it. And I have to agree with that too. He did not want the limelight. He stayed pretty much off the press conferences, as everyone's seen. Kratz took them, for as long as they lasted. So, bravo, Banana Man. I totally agree. Questions, comments, concerns? Rich and graphic?
Well, there's a lot of
I
comments.
don't recall.
I don't recall. There is a lot of.
I don't recall.
Ice Copy said, was SA in custody when GA phoned Peg, or Penny? And yes, Jinx answered that. Yes, she was.
So to wrap up the roar.
What did they tell Penny about that call? That it could have been somebody that knew Avery that wasn't in jail at the time,
right?
Or yada yada. And
yeah,
they basically blamed
and not
Avery
to worry
for
about
anyway.
it.
Oh, Walker Sork told her.
About it.
Yeah, don't worry. Yeah, don't worry about it. Yeah, we got the right guy.
How do you think she felt?
Sorry.
That, you know what I mean? I mean, thinking, knowing after the fact, I guess, knowing that he was still out there and Avery was not the one that did it. I mean, I wonder how that felt for her.
Well, it would be, I'm not you ladies would know more than I would, but I mean, just looking at it from my standpoint, I would feel awful. I mean,
it would sure give me cause, right?
Well, you think about back in the time, we've talked about this quite a bit before, Penny's condition at the time, Alan beat the crap out of her. I mean, he beat the shit out of her, let's be honest. And they're trying to force her to say that it was, Avery that did it. And, I don't know. To me,
one well-placed punch could have did that to her, both her eyes.
It doesn't even matter. It's still the fact that you have trust in your legal, trusted that what they were doing, you went to court, you were trusting that they were getting the right person. Then 18 years later, they find out it wasn't. I mean, that's got to be, I don't trust anybody, anything they're doing. I mean,
well,
my God.
6 months in, you start getting these calls. I'd be wondering, I'd be all over the cops.
Oh my God, yeah.
Well, she phoned the cops to and tell them that she was getting the funny phone calls.
Yes.
And that was the MO at the time. So the penny should have dropped.
Yeah. I don't know how all this stuff just got swept under the covers,
They just kind of brushed her off.
You would think there would be, outrage in that town and in that city, wherever it happened. It would, here, if that would happen, there would be outrage. There'd be protesting something. These people just keep quiet about it. Like there's no big deal. It made no difference.
Especially since he was victimizing other girls in the neighborhood. You'd think at least those families Well, maybe they didn't know it was Gregory Allen, but they were watching him for certain stuff, like
Well, yeah, he went after some kids.
a bunch of teenage girls and stuff.
Yeah, he went after some teenage girls at the bus stop early in the morning, and just the guy. I mean, I've read through his file. The guy was a
And he
monster.
flashed them, if I remember right.
Yeah.
Wasn't that the story that Sandra Morris is always talking about? He's like flashing his penis at her and stuff on the driving by. That sounds more like Gregory Allen's MO.
Oh, I agree. I don't think that was Avery at all. I think that was Allen.
Like
And
maybe
then-
that did happen to her in front of his house. Maybe he was just the one standing there, not Avery.
That's what I'm saying. That's exactly what I believe. Because she's in her deposition, he was ready to go. Come on.
Yeah.
So
We're getting a shout out from Eric, Banana Man. Thank you for the great read. Thank you, all the Foul Play team, for bringing the depositions to life and to a wider audience.
oh, absolutely. Thank
No
you,
problem.
Eric, for you and Julia really went through a lot of. Well, I know for a fact you went through pure hell to get what we got. Pure hell.
Yeah.
Before, during, and after, right?
Oh my God. Well, of course, the accusations flew. They were, of course, baseless and all this other stuff. It was just crazy. But here we are now, and
And luckily, Netflix Colburn versus Netflix has produced a couple of these files that are public now. So
Yep, that's right. So
when you read the ones that are in that Google Drive exhibits, I think there's 6 or 7 of them.
Yeah, and we'll tackle those, and I probably would like to do a few that I can do snips from, to tie some more of this together. But eventually, I would like to touch on all of them, especially those that are relevant, because there's just some really interesting information about really what was going on that you don't see in MAM, you don't see in the trial, you don't see in any of the pretrial stuff. This is completely separate, and it's good foundation, And for the newer people that don't know, I think they should. If they want to really understand the 2005 case, they have to understand the 85 case and moving forward through the depositions, because it's right there. It's, to me, they're tied together. I know not everybody believes. I think they're tied together at the hip.
It is.
Oh,
We really do. We really do have to know it.
They're definitely tied together. No matter what way you look at both the cases, the same cops that were involved in the first case were involved in the second case. Plain, straight and simple. And as for Roar, oh my God, and I'm going to swear and I'm so sorry, but what a fucking tosser. Oh my God, the amount of times I was pulling my hair out with that, I don't recall. Fuck hiring him as your lawyer. You tell him one thing on the Monday and he forgets it by the fucking Tuesday.
Hey, you preach it, sister. I'm right there with you.
Oh my God, man. I can't even believe that he got away with it. I don't recall. You fucking numpty. What? Do you remember putting your knickers on in the morning, you fucking off-wit?
I love it. I love it.
I love it when she gets wound up.
So do I. That's fantastic. Well, I agree. Again, I'm sure he was all about protecting Mark Rohr and, secondly, the where he worked for, the state, So I get it, but I don't agree with it. I even saw last night I was cruising around Reddit, and somebody had PM'd me a link, and I ended up in the guilty sub. I'm sorry, I did. I generally don't go there. I just don't. They can say whatever they want. It's their thing and their opinion, and that's fine.
Hey, Silkman said Foul Play is picking up the shrink tab, so not a better time to wind up there.
So anyway, this person, well, I'm just going to say it because I've already talked to Eric and Julie about this, but someone posted a link to the depositions on the guilty sub, and they're not supposed to be there. the full depositions are not supposed to be shared publicly. That's
The
per what.
non-disclosure ones, right?
Yeah,
That's
what the
correct.
hell?
Yeah.
Well, I'm just telling you, they're there. Anyway, someone had directed me to that. And anyway, down in the comments, someone had said that they claim to be a lawyer. I'm not going to say that they're not. Maybe they are. And that they had been up against Mr. Rohr, and he was a good man. He was a good guy and all that. And I had to reply. I'm sorry. I had to reply. A good guy that just blatantly leaves all this stuff out. He's allegedly trying to, integrity of the office, but all this stuff gets really left out of the final report. And this this prosecutor's hair is not on fire, because he knows that stuff has been left out. There are numerous files that I know he knew about. People, even if he wasn't there in 85 and 83, people that lived there were there. He had to know. So anyway.
But he was there in 92, correct? Like, didn't he say, I don't know if he was actually there in Manitowoc in 92, but he graduated college or law school in 92.
Yeah, he went to law school in Lansing, I think.
Was
Lansing,
he in
Michigan.
Manitowoc when the 95 call was made?
He went to work in Two Rivers or somewhere over there in the early 90s, right after he graduated. So he was in the region. So
well,
I don't
worked
know.
for Fox something. Wasn't Fox in that law firm? Wasn't that Judge Fox?
I think so.
That became Judge Fox later.
I think so.
I think so too.
Hey, I have a comment directed toward Alice.
Go.
Yeah.
Dr. Silkman said, "I want Alice to join the Reading with Uncle Ken podcast."
Oh my God.
Are you sure about that? It might not be a good idea.
We have it in writing.
You've been invited by the head cheese, so
Okay.
sounds to me like you're in.
Okay, I'm in.
I agree, Doc. She's great. Anyway, I'm gonna just say we're pretty well wrapped on the I don't recall, man. I would love to hear what Stacy comes up with for a song, because my God, I should just go back at some point and count, if I can bear it, from part 1 and part 2. How many times he says I don't recall?
Well, he said I don't recall 129 times in the second part, plus one.
Oh my God!
He said I recall. He said I recall. What did I say? 15 times, 12 times, or something.
And ain't there I don't remember or something?
And then there was another one that he says it like 5 times, and then
it was I don't recall.
150 times he doesn't remember that I counted, whether it be I don't recall, I do not recall.
I swear in my head it sounded like 800.
And of course it does.
That would be my estimation.
It's so long and boring, just hearing it over and over again, just seems like forever.
You think about, the part 2 was basically it was 75 pages. Well, probably a little bit less than that, probably 72 pages.
I put notes in the local chat here about words he was saying.
It could have been like 5 pages if they cut out all that I don't recall, right?
Well, you think about how many times that he goes through and the questions asking this I don't recall in that short a span of questioning, and it really tells its own story to me. I was like, "Are you serious?" I'd read it before, like after we got the depositions, but I didn't really like read it. But I was like, "My God, how many times are you going to say that, man?" But we were trying to go through a lot of different depositions, so I didn't study it, but it's terrible.
I can't do it on this one. It doesn't let me search words.
It's crazy how much they used it and got away with it. I mean, they're trying to get answers here, and
you have to count on this PDF because this one doesn't have a
crazy.
It is crazy. Anyway,
can you imagine how frustrated that lawyer was asking the questions? I bet he just wanted to punch him right in the mouth.
Yeah, probably.
Well, he was getting mad because he goes, "Come on, you're a lawyer. You know what I'm asking you." Because he was trying to say, "Well, what's the best to your recollection that you remember?" And he's like, "I don't recall verbatim." He's like, "Not verbatim or precisely, just in general. What do you remember? It doesn't have to be precise or exact." And he knows what he's asking. He knows the lawyer knows what he's asking. He knows the lawyer knows, and he's
It
getting
just shows.
I
It
mean,
just shows how bad they are there. I mean, then what they get away with. It really shows.
I love that the one thing he does recall is his praise from Penny.
that is noteworthy.
What a good job he was doing, and then yet he can't recall. He can't recall what a good job he can't even recall what a good job he did because he can't recall.
Or what he did that was the good job for her to say it.
And when it was him and Greaseback, he could recall some things when it came to him. So when his ass was on the line, he could remember shit. You know what I mean?
I think we should go ask Penny if she really complimented him, because that might be a lie.
Could be. Well, I really, there's several conversations that he had surrounding all of it. I really want to know what Kasork said. I want to know what Judge Hazelwood said. And there were, the Bergner and I can't remember his name now, Bergner and, the other guy, whatever the hell his name was, what they said, the city police, what that was all about, what they talked about Ellen, because clearly that was what it was about. I want to know what they said, but for them not to take notes, it's just damn near criminal to me. I don't.
I had concerns, but I don't know what my concerns were about, because every conversation I had with everybody, I don't recall.
Yeah, and I didn't write anything down. I didn't write these important. I talked to the Attorney General, but if I know what date it was, I didn't write it down. I don't remember. Come on. Anyway,
that's a bunch of BS.
And he said in one sentence, he got asked, was it more than 2? He says, aye, it was more than 2. And then he goes, was it 3? Oh, I don't recall. Well, you just said it was more than 1, so it's obviously more than 2.
All right, I'm gonna put a wrap on the Mark Rohr deposition, and we're gonna move into Gus Road. So just an invite there to Doc or anyone else out there that wants to jump on Discord and get in the chat. We're not going to talk. This is going to be a beginning discussion. We're not anything too in depth, and then I'm going to leave everyone with a. Hopefully, this recording will play. I've never done this myself personally through OBS, so hopefully everyone will be able to hear it. If they can, I'll make a technical correction for next time, and everyone can hear it. But we'll give it a try. But anyway, let's talk about Cuss Road. And I know it's a favorite subject of Doc Silkman. So, yeah.
Let's Doc, come to the office.
Yeah, come on to the office, Doc.
Right now we're going to talk about it?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, we're gonna talk about it. There's Doc.
There's Doc. Let's just start off with saying
I don't recall what this conversation is about.
Isn't that amazing, Doc?
I just want to say that Alice is worth her weight in gold.
She's hysterical when she gets wound up, right?
I love it. I'm in bed still because it's early, but oh my God, that's hilarious.
Thank you.
What I appreciate, and I think everyone appreciates, you say it as it is. You're 100% correct. It's absolutely disgusting what they got away with.
And with such enthusiasm and vigor, Asa.
Correct. No, brilliant. Absolutely brilliant.
Trained you well, Alice.
Preach it, sister. Anyway, Cuss Road, let's just do a little we can just kind of talk about these as I go through them, or you guys can talk. I've got obviously the pictures up Cuss Road that the Wisconsin State Patrol took of aerial photos. You can see there's a lot of photos. There's like 620 something photos in this album. But we're really interested in Cuss Road and the photos that they took and documented. There's one of the overhead of the whole area.
Can I just say Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, my biggest question is, if there was nothing but a stump, then why were police and an ambulance and that kind of stuff there on Cuss Road? If there was nothing there, why would it take them a full day? And I think it was 2 days or more. They were there, and they had all that equipment there.
And all those officers.
And all
And
that crime
Fly
tape,
over, took
all
pictures.
that crime tape,
Here,
all
but
those
then
lights.
fly over on the 4th didn't have.
and somebody that was there and then didn't get seen leaving, right, Doc?
Correct. I mean, I'm not going to talk too much about the Cuss Road, but it was treated as a proper crime scene, and that's the important thing. I think, as Jack 61 pointed out, they took a lot of photographs. There was a lot of personnel down there. They took a lot of aerial photographs. They even set up lights. So there was something very, very important going on there, guys. No question.
Tape the whole place off.
Correct.
More tape that got used at Avery's.
That's correct. And not only that, remember Pagel prevented the dogs from crossing the police line, right? Do not cross.
That's right.
And
Yep.
and when one thinks about it, right, you bring in the dogs to help you, correct, to assist you in your investigation. Now, imagine the surprise of the dog handler when she wasn't given permission to use her dogs to cross the police line to find out what was going on. That's completely insane. To me, that's the analogy of them preventing the coroner coming onto the Avery site. Same deal.
That's right.
You mean it makes
So-
no sense?
Zora says the whole Cuss Road was canvassed by DCI.
Yeah, it does make no sense. And don't forget, the other thing, of course, is that I think it was, I forgot the gentleman's name. They did thousands of measurements of Cuss Road. They did a 3D map. So if Cuss Road was actually nothing, how come they measured everything up, right? They did a 3D map of it. So clearly that area was very important.
Did they not allow? They allowed the dogs after they did. After
did,
it was nothing
yes.
but a stump, and then they actually followed.
Correct.
Did they follow that stump anywhere?
Well, I think Mystic Jinx, I think what they did was they sanitized the site. They cleaned it up. So they prevented the dogs from going on because then imagine if the dogs actually had found something, they would have had to have written that in a report. So I think they prevented the dogs from checking out the location. They sanitized the site. They brought in the dogs. Oh, nothing to see here. So, everything was covered up. I still believe that it was all covered up.
I think they used the dogs, just like you said, to not let them in there at first and then clean it and then have them back so they didn't have to say, hey, this is why there was,
Did
human.
those dogs go over to
below.
Vern, though, into his pit?
Yes, they did. Yes, they did.
It followed the stump over the hill.
Yes. Well, the thing is that where the dogs went predominantly was off the Avery salvage yard, and that must have been a real problem for the investigators. Either it was due to contamination or Teresa Hallbach was actually there. And I remember Kathleen Zellner said in Ma'am 2, what the hell is she doing out here? Right?
Yeah, like she was
And so,
on the quarry and
yeah, what what is she doing out in the quarry? And don't forget, who came out of retirement for one day?
Bushman.
And what does Bushman do? What's
Dog
one
handler.
part of his? He's a dog
handler.
handler, right? He's a dog handler, so he
I
knows
just
all
want to
about
make
the
a point to
canines.
say that he did not come out of retirement. He was actually
Okay,
He was
He's
actually
reserve-
a reserve deputy, and they could have called him in at any time. They did call in
Yes,
other reserve deputies for one
that
day
is
to do
true.
stuff.
Yeah,
So
that is true. But of all the people to call out, it just happened to be a dog handler. And
correct.
like, are you trying to tell me that there was nobody else that could have come out to investigate what? A peat moss, a fake burial ground.
Well,
Come
why,
on, please.
Doc, why would they, while you guys are talking, just thinking about this, I mean, I've been on this photo here for a while now. Why would they cover up a peat moss bag, remains, whatever, with a blue tarp? Why would they do that? If it's nothing.
Correct. If you think about it, and I did a comparison between both the burn pit and what was found at Cuss Road. And I tell you what, Cuss Road resembled more of a true crime scene than what the burn pit did. You're correct. It had a massive blue tarp. It actually had lights that illuminated the area, and it had police tape, as BB said, absolutely everywhere. There was a huge amount of police tape.
They
right?
even had those survey guys out marking exact locations of stuff.
Correct.
They had
Now,
that guy up on the
I think-
ridge with that. I can't think
Yes,
what that.
with that survey thing.
Yeah.
Yes.
Correct.
They brought
Correct.
out lights to do it at night because it got dark, but yet it took them 2 days to look
Yes.
at the burn pit over at Avery's.
That's correct. And not only that, they didn't take any photographs
Right.
And not,
of the
not,
remains.
not
I
only,
think there should
not,
be a law with the tarping. Like, you cannot tarp something unless you're videotaping while you're tarping and while you're untarping, because at any point they could remove the tarp and take any kind of evidence that was under the tarp,
Yeah,
and
but
you just wouldn't see it. Nobody ahead in the above in the cameras.
I
the
agree.
news
I
crews.
agree with you, but I have a feeling that everything was actually videotaped and photographed. I think everything was recorded. You're not going to see that footage.
Well,
It's
no,
like
it's like the
it's- yeah.
flyover.
It's
They have-
exactly correct. 100% agree. It's all been
I mean,
edited.
there was more crime scene tape round Cuss Road than there ever was round Stephen Avery's trailer or his burn pit, where
Correct.
this horrendous murder is supposed to have occurred. You know what I
Correct.
mean? So
Correct.
there was definitely something going on, and you could get onto this Avery property, fake Cuss Road or not.
Correct.
So
Doc-
anything
yeah.
could have happened there. Anybody could have, say, killed Teresa on Cuss Road and then put the body and the motor on Stephen's property.
That's
But
correct.
I say it was law enforcement
That-
and Ryan
well,
Higgins.
Yeah, well, remember when Stephen Avery was arrested during his interrogation, Fassbender and Wiegert told him exactly how the Toyota RAV4 got onto his property from the deer camp because, and I quote, it followed the dog tracks. Okay, so the dog tracks actually led the investigators the route of how the RAV4 got onto the actual property. And so, Fassbender actually let the cat out of the bag.
Now, how
Right.
would that be if he planted the RAV back there by himself? Why didn't he just drive it back there on his own
Yeah.
property? Why would he have to go through the deer camp? That makes no sense.
Correct.
No sense.
And also the dog tracks went across the cornfield, right? Which is, the field between Stephen's property and Cuss Road.
Right.
That's pretty scary. The dogs spent more time off the Avery salvage yard than on the salvage yard. So something weird had occurred, that's for sure. And, when you think about it, resources, they complained that they were stretched for resources, correct? They complained. The MTSO complained and Calumet complained, well, we didn't have enough people to help. Then why are all the resources at Cuss Road if there was nothing but a tree stump and peat moss? How many people were down at Cuss? It's incredible.
Oh, there was a minimum of 20 officers there, and probably upwards of
It's huge.
probably
I
40
want to
or
know why
50.
they didn't keep a log of crime scene login of who was entering that area.
Yep,
and
that's right.
Yes.
Where's that?
Yes.
Should have started immediately.
Yeah,
Shane
and
Hendry wants to know, did Steve's lawyers not see the dog tracks? Paperwork, I assume.
actually, there wasn't that much discussion about the dog tracks in the trial. I was actually very surprised that the defense didn't make more of an inquiry about those dog tracks. I'm not sure whether they understood the significance of those dog tracks, but there certainly was a lot of activity around the quarry and Cuss Road, no question.
Yeah, this one prior picture here that really kind of gives a little bit better indicator of size of that blue tarp.
Yes.
And I just covering a peat moss bag with blue tarp, to me,
Yes.
that's a dead giveaway.
Yeah, and don't forget, they also did aerial photography at night time. So
Yes.
what the hell is a helicopter taking pictures of nothing at night?
That's right.
I'd like to know why the aerial photos for Cuss Road are so much more clear than any of the, like that first day or two that they were in the helicopter plane casing Avery's and casing the area for her
Correct.
car. It's
Correct.
all blurry and crappy, but yet here we are with these. They obviously had the technology to do a better job.
Correct. To me, and I'm not going to harp on about it, to me, they suppressed what happened at Cuss Road. And don't forget, Colburn and a few other officers were called back to Cuss Road twice.
Yep.
Twice. And it was Colburn that remember he had the camera? I'm sure he took a lot of photographs. So you basically, Colburn, he's like a documenter of evidence. As more evidence was being uncovered, he was photographing everything. So I don't think we've seen those pictures.
Was he photographing everything so he can use them against the officers later?
Well, I reckon they had an unofficial record of events, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And this last photo I'm on, I don't know if it's caught up yet. Let me see. Yeah, that photo there, I mean, that shows the vastness of the time, how many cars were there, and not to get off on time of God, but you think about it, she basically walked right to that RAV in roughly 30 minutes. It was actually, I think, a little bit less, but let's just say 30 minutes. Walk right to that. Amazing.
Yeah.
There's no way she didn't know it was there.
Oh, she knew it was there all right, because even customers that went to the yard couldn't just go in and find something. They would go to Errol or Chuck or Stephen and they would say, I'm looking for a carburetor for a Honda Civic or whatever. And they would have to say, right, well, you need to go down so many rows and in so many motors.
Correct.
So for her to be
in
able
a
to
good place. It was up on a ridge where everybody could see it, and on that first,
Correct.
like if she were to walk into the office area, that's right there on that side. You walk back, check those cars first, and you find the RAV right up there on the stage, basically, looking odd to everything else.
Yeah, according to the state, Stephen and Brendan, I believe, put that RAV4 on the night of the 31st. And according to Brendan, they drove the RAV4 right past Mama Avery's house and also Chuck's property, right through the back way, and no one saw a thing. And you're correct, Alice is correct. That means that RAV4 was sitting there from the Monday to the Saturday, and no customer, no one, including Earl and Chuck, saw a thing.
Not a chance in hell, Doc.
Yeah.
And if it was sitting there the whole time, how did it get from the deer camp?
Correct. And apparently Earl even went down there. Remember they were rabbit hunting?
Rabbits,
yeah. And he never saw anything down there. Yeah. So clearly It can't be the case. It cannot be the case. That
Janet,
vehicle was, yeah.
Jasnaz says she was supposed to be looking for a missing person too.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah. And remember the surprise of Pam of God when she saw the RAV? Oh, it's blue. It's not dark green.
Yeah, I'm
So,
confused.
that, yeah. Yes, correct.
Yeah, bluish
So then how did she
green.
know it was Teresa's?
That's correct. That's correct.
Because it's got all this shit stacked on top of it.
It looked all weird, like it had stuff all over it, unlike everything else in the.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but people keep going on about Stephen not having a high IQ and things like that, but he's not going to be daft enough to put a motor up there and then cover it with branches and the bonnet of a hood. It's just not. He would have put it in the crusher.
Yeah, correct. 100% agree. And it actually made the RAV4 stand out. It didn't hide it.
Yes.
It made it really obvious.
Honestly,
Bethany,
that ridge was up high too, so it's like, here you are, ta-da!
Yes. And the
Bethany.
giveaway.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry, BB.
Bethany says, I believe God led me to it, not the map that Ryan Hilligus drew for me, where he planted it.
Correct. Correct. And you know what the giveaway line? You know what the giveaway is, right? If Stephen Avery tried to hide the RAV4, how come he left the big Toyota sign on the back wheel?
Exactly.
Right.
Toyota.
It's like a neon sign on the back, right?
That is correct.
Hey.
They might as well have been a giant arrow pointing down at it saying, it's
That's
here.
correct. You might as well have put a sign, hey, welcome to the Toyota dealership in the Avery salvage. That's how obvious it was.
I have a
But you've got to
question
remember
here.
you've got to remember the flyovers and all. The first flyovers and that they done, that motor wasn't there.
No,
You can clearly
it's
see
definitely not there.
that motor was not there when they
No.
done that first flyover.
No, that's correct. 100% agree.
I don't
with
know.
you.
It's very hard for me to tell on that flyover because they only look in that direction for like a split of a second.
0.2 of a second.
And then it's all blurry and crappy. You can't, like, I remember going through the flyover and having to look from when it was tarped on the 5th. The pictures are so much more clear on the 5th in that video than it is on the 4th. You can tell there's only like 3 minutes on the 4th. But I tried to do my best to see if there was that RAV in that area, and it was so hard to say if it was or if it was not.
But the issue though is where's the other 3 hours of footage they took?
Yeah, because they were up there for
right. Right.
I have a question. Doc.
Yes.
Now I'm pointing to this white utility truck, which I don't know what that is, maybe an ambulance. And then we have a yellow utility truck, or maybe it's an ambulance.
Yes.
And then we have a red. What's that red one? Is that an ambulance too?
Well, yours just asked, what was the fire truck doing there?
Yeah,
it doesn't look like a fire truck to me though, because it has a flat white top, like a fire paramedic truck.
Well, it could be.
Yeah, no, there's a red one. There was a red one as well. There are some photos.
One of them is the crime unit, right?
I think the yellow.
That's correct.
I think the yellow one's a crime unit.
Crime scene unit for sure. I think the white one is the one that brought the
lights,
the floodlight. Yeah, the lights, because there are photographs
a utility
that show
vehicle.
Yes. It actually showed all the floodlights aligned right next to the truck. So you think about this, right? You've got a utility truck that's got floodlights. You've actually got a crime lab truck as well, a fire truck, all the detectives, all for what? A tree stump. That's ridiculous.
It is.
That's completely ridiculous.
So were the bones, the barrel in the back of that yellow truck when he was taking those pictures above ground, from the sky, the aerial pictures?
You're talking about the bones?
The barrels. I meant the barrels.
The barrels.
He brought the barrel back when he went back to Cuss Road to investigate this stuff.
Yes.
So that thing has evidence in the back of that.
There could well be, correct. It could well be, because There are some pictures where it does look like there's a burn barrel there. Yes, I agree. But again, because of a lack of proper documentation, we don't know. We do not know. But yes, one of the burn barrels at Cuss Road, I'm not sure which dog actually did a hit on it, but it was surrounded by crime scene tape.
Yeah, that was, I think, at the deer camp more.
At the deer camp, correct.
Perfect timing for them to. Do we ever see that yellow? Maybe they just brought it through the forest, though, too. Like, is there any aerial pictures of them taking that barrel out and planting it, changing it?
Oh, look, I would.
Maybe we need to go look through those a little more closer and see.
Look, I would say that there is documentation, but you're not going to see it. It's gone. It's suppressed. You're not going to see it.
I know, but I would love to see it actually on the camera, and then like.
Oh yes,
see,
of
look,
course.
we caught you red-handed.
Of course. I mean, what worries me is the fact that they actually found human cremains in Yonder Burn Barrel number 2. Now that makes no sense at all.
Is that the one they came back and renamed?
Well, yeah, there's some shenanigans going on with the burn barrels. Correct.
It's like the nutshell.
And the numbering system for the burn barrels.
That is correct. Yeah, it's a nightmare trying to follow it. The burn barrels and the tag numbers. It's very, very difficult to follow what's going on. I agree.
Moving on looked at them for years.
Yes, she did. Yeah. She did a huge amount of work on the burn barrels. But I mean, the reality, the way I see it, the reality is there are cremains all over the place.
Well, yeah, even in the Manitowoc County quarry, correct? I mean,
correct.
What you wanted to test, and then it just so happens that Peterson on that first article said that the RAV was found. Originally, he said in nearby Avery's at the county quarry, the Manitowoc County quarry gravel pit. That's what he said in that first article.
Correct. And Kathleen Zillner surmises that Teresa Horbach was actually murdered in a nearby quarry.
Yeah, probably that quarry, the Manitowoc.
It could well be. Correct.
Yeah,
I think.
I don't think she
Jack.
was. That's okay. I just don't think. I was just going to say I don't think she was necessarily killed at Cuss Road, but I do think that there was definitely an event that happened right there where that freaking tarp was.
No, that's where they left the body after she died. That's probably where they left her stump.
Well, I mean, we joke around, but if you sort of look at what happened to poor Christine Rudy, that's exactly what happened. Like it was a body stump. That he took off the arms, the limbs, I think the head as well, and had the stump because the stump is very hard to dispose of. So instead of trying to burn it, what did he do? He threw it in the river. Right. So you don't know what was found at Cuss. I'm not saying a stump as in a human stump was found, but
no, but Linda made that good point that is what they call a body when it has.
That's correct. That is correct. That's correct.
Hey, Jack, really quick, a little while back, Shane Henry asked how many days was the Avery family off the property before the RAV was found, and initially I said 8 days, but wasn't it just the next day after Avery? Yes. Steve went to Crivets. Okay.
Crivets.
Yeah, because Chuck was still. I mean, Earl was still there.
They were on the property. I think it was Brendan and Chuck went up on that Thursday night or Friday night, and then Stephen and
Ma and
someone else and
Blaine.
I think it was Brian or Blaine, one of the other brothers, and Mama Avery all went up around 5 a.m. on the 5th, and then they found the car like 5 hours
That's correct.
later.
Yeah.
That's correct.
Okay. That's what I thought. Okay. I did. Okay.
Do we know when Earl checks into the office? Because I know that he doesn't live on site. So if everybody's off the property by 5 a.m. in the morning, when does Earl arrive? Like 8 or 9 in the morning? Because that would have
He should have came at regular business hours, right?
Well, that's what I'm thinking. He probably didn't come until,
Probably 8 o'clock.
half an hour or an hour before office opened. So let's say it opened at 8. He comes in at 7. There's a 2-hour window that where is everybody on the property at that time? Because a lot of them are already in Crivets or headed to Crivets.
Yes.
Oh, absolutely.
Correct. And
right, and
remember,
Bobby would have still probably Bobby and Barb maybe were probably at work, right?
Well, Bobby was probably just getting home around 5 or 6 in the morning because he worked
in the
night.
morning, yeah. And remember what Earl said to Pam of God? Earl said that, there were already searches that had come through before Pam of God. Isn't that interesting?
And that was probably that cousin of hers named, what was his name?
One with the truck or something.
Oh, I can't remember his name. It's not coming to me. But Beach, something Beach.
David Beach.
Yes.
David Beach. Yeah, he said, and that's why when you see he gave them a flyer for Teresa.
That's correct.
That
yes, he did.
They taped it on the little area in the office.
Yes.
You see a picture of that in evidence photos, yeah.
Well, yeah, and he made a pass through, and seeming like he got stuck or almost got stuck, and he warned Pam of God about driving down through there because the road was so bad and blah blah blah. I remember that.
Oh, so he actually drove through the area.
Yeah, him and his girlfriend or wife drove through.
Now, see, if he would have driven up that road past Chuck's house, right up into the area, right back, that goes right back to that area. Why didn't he see it?
Because it wasn't. He wasn't there. He would have seen that damn car. There's no way that rat wasn't there. I'm sure of it.
In my opinion, it got driven there on the night of the 4th.
I agree.
You know, when Chuck said, I saw lights by my house.
Yep.
I reckon he actually saw the RAV.
Well, I think
wasn't it the 3rd when he was going? He saw lights or something by Avery. Avery saw lights on the 4th.
That was on the 3rd. That's when they went to Menards. But the day after, on the Friday, he saw lights by his property as he was driving to Crivets.
And one of them was tail lights and one was headlights.
Correct. There were
yes.
Tail lights by Stephen and headlights by Chuck's. And that makes perfect sense if you're driving a RAV from the quarry onto the property.
So, I don't know where everybody.
The flyover was them investigating on and how and where to plant that RAV.
Well, you know what?
They even zoomed into the station wagon where they planted the what do you call it?
The plates. Yeah, and when you think about it, right, the 4th, when they did the flyover, would have been the perfect opportunity for them to say, "Oh, there's a good spot to plant it."
Yep.
Because they had an aerial view. They had an aerial view of the quarries, and they had an aerial view of the salvage yard. They had the perfect. Because remember, Pagel and I think Baldwin never said a word to the pilot. They kept quiet.
Well, that's another thing,
I thought there was a little clip where like somebody tried to clean up. They were talking to each other at least, Wendy and
yes.
Pagel.
Okay. But they never said anything to the pilot if they saw anything.
Oh, okay.
I know that when the Great Lakes sent up that helicopter called Eagle 3, that pilot, and I'm going to try to dig that clip out for next time because we can expand on this. But that pilot with Great Lakes radioed into CASO looking for Pagel, but we don't know the results of what he told him because it's not in the dispatch calls.
And when did he call in to talk to Pagel? Not while Pagel was up in the air with them, right? Because that would be
no. This was a separate thing. This was
Great Lakes comes the next day in a helicopter, not a plane.
They're doing their own flyby thing. And it would be interesting to know also if they had their own photographs, which obviously we don't know, and probably if they did, I don't know if we could get them, but I do remember that call on the dispatch records, and I'm going to try to dig that out.
Well, where do the flyover photos come from that we have of Cuss Road?
That's Wisconsin State Patrol, all of them.
Oh, okay.
Everything in that folder, there's actually more than just that, but those all come from the Wisconsin State Patrol. And there's actually more photos. There's National Air Guard photos. I know that Doc has seen that in the discovery file. We don't have those. I think we have like one or two, but there are more that we don't have. And obviously, I think, like I said, I think Colburn documented that whole area, and we don't have those
Yes.
photos. We can't get them. I know that people have
Yes.
tried, and we still can't get them. But I think for
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say, remember when they found the so-called burner phone? Campion found the burner phone, and Pam
Yep.
of God found. Who rolls up and takes the photographs?
Yep.
Colburn.
Colburn.
Good old Andy.
It's amazing.
He's everywhere. He's the man.
He's everywhere.
Yep.
He's the man of the moment.
Well, he did find the RAV to help, with their whole planting thing. So
Yes.
they had to pat him on the back and give him as much as possible so that he
Sure.
could take the fall too.
Yes, correct.
So for next time, we're 2.5 hours. So, for next time, through the week, we can plan on what we want to talk about Cuss Road, and we can even stretch this over. We could probably do 10 different episodes on it, but we can plan what we really want to drive down to and discuss. And I'll get some photos together and even some documentation that we can drive a little further down. And even if we educate just a few people, the newer people that are along, and just talk about this again, who knows who will come up with what and reinvigorate someone to maybe send another for you. Maybe they'll get lucky. I don't know. I know we've tried to get these photographs that we don't have, and we've met a brick wall, but I'll keep trying, right?
Jack.
So, yep.
Yes.
Next week we're going to be on later, right?
Next week we'll be on at 3 Central, so it's not so early for Doc, and he can participate in the conversation.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah, let's
That'd be
do that.
awesome.
So, because I know this is a subject for you that you like to talk about, and you're very knowledgeable. So, well, the more the merrier. I'm glad to do
So we'll start 2 hours later.
it. Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah. I think
So we don't have to do math for everyone.
right.
Yeah.
I think Cuss Road is the key. If you could unravel Cuss Road, I think you can crack the case.
absolutely.
In my opinion.
And it's tied with the quarry. There's no doubt about it.
Correct.
They employed too many resources for it to be nothing but a couple of peat moss bags. Are you kidding me? No way.
Correct.
Which
I think I was going to say, sorry, Jack.
That's
I think what horrified the leaders was the fact that they found cremains in the Manitowoc County gravel pit. I think there were 3 actual dump sites of the cremains, and so they weren't prepared for that, right? So in other words, the crime scene got bigger and bigger and bigger. So if you think about it, you've got the quarry, you've got Cuss Road, you've got the Manitowoc County gravel pit, and you also have the finding of the blood, CX, in the quarry, right? So everything is, and plus the dog tracks. So everything is pointing.
Is Redondant's quarry, correct?
Yes, Redonce.
Yeah.
But the bones were found in the Manitowoc County gravel pit, not Redonce.
Right.
Okay. As soon as this pops in here, I'm going to play a little clip so we can maybe talk about this just for a minute before we jump out. But maybe there's some people out there that haven't heard this. I'm sure I know a lot of people have, but I think it's important that we keep this front and center of. Hopefully, this will play. If people cannot hear it, please tell me, and I'll stop. And but hopefully, everybody can hear this. So here we go.
Cameron County Sheriff.
Hey, Travis, it's Kelly.
Yes.
Can I speak to the captain, please?
Yes.
Kelsey.
Hey, Paul.
What's up?
Did you hear? There are human bones that we found?
I heard about some of them, yes.
Yep, okay. We got another pile that we found.
Okay.
Going in, and our crime scene has now expanded by about 2 miles.
Okay.
Now what he's doing is He burned her in the backyard, and that was a real small pile that was left. And we got 2 5-gallon pails full down at this other site about 1.5 miles, 2 miles away. About 1.5 miles away, probably. And we got a few, we got more pails full out along the way somewhere. So,
Okay.
because we're going to go in small, we got to get really tight, and we're going to have to search really small parameters.
Okay.
So, otherwise, I think that was kind of why we missed some of this stuff. We had so many people doing so large of areas that we were missing things, basically.
Okay.
We did good searching, but we were always looking for a body. Now we're looking for smaller.
Okay.
So you couldn't hear it, Rhonda?
Yes.
I can't.
I turned up my client on my YouTube chat, and I could hear it on my phone.
I could hear it. I had to turn up YouTube. I couldn't hear it on
I
here.
could hear it
You
on
couldn't
my
hear it.
YouTube. The phone I'm on YouTube with. Yeah, I could.
You could hear it, BB.
Yes.
Okay, so anyone, I guess,
I could hear it on YouTube. I can hear it on YouTube.
yeah. If you had YouTube muted, that probably was the reason why you couldn't hear it. I apologize. Should have warned.
Yours says this call is actually longer. Should hear it in total. More
Yeah.
stuff in it.
Yeah, I just wanted to play that clip. I know there's a longer version of it, but I didn't. I waited too late, and I didn't have time to pull it out of the dispatch calls. Yeah, I'll get the longer version of it, so everybody can hear the full thing for next week. But it's still interesting that this call and what he says, and then he's trying to turn around and saying that Avery did this in the quarry and then did this in his burn area, and then hauled some of it to the quarry and scattered
Yes.
shit around. Really? Come on.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, correct. So put it this way, no matter what evidence they found, they had to point it to Stephen. No matter where the evidence was, they had to point it to Stephen. Whenever they referred to the deer camp or the quarries, it was always in relationship to Stephen's property. So they tried to point everything back to Stephen.
But in
No
the
matter
end,
where they
just
found them, no
buried
matter
that,
where they
that
found them.
evidence as much as they could, and they didn't point it as Avery leaving the property and putting it on the quarry and on Cuss Road, right? They
Correct.
kind of have to stick to their theory now. Their story was when they convicted him. So this
Yeah,
doesn't
and,
play into their story right now because that's not what they said happened.
Correct. Basically, their story was neither Teresa nor her RAV4 left the Avery salvage yard. And yet all the forensic evidence is telling you that's not the case.
And they knew they
Correct.
couldn't force it on Avery if the bones were found in the quarry.
Correct. And that was the importance, sorry, Jack, that was the importance of testing that pelvic bone fragment found in the Manitowoc County gravel pit, because how do you explain part of Teresa Horbach's pelvis being in the burn pit and the other part of her pelvis being over half a mile away in the Manitowoc County gravel? You can't explain that.
No,
That's
you
ridiculous.
can't. Well, another thing,
That's
Doc,
ridiculous.
they couldn't place Avery in that area. They didn't have anything
Correct.
at all. And
that's correct.
I'm like everyone else. I feel that they were watching him pretty close.
Yes. Yeah.
So anyway, if there's nothing more, I'm gonna wrap her up here. If there's any other thoughts, and I will say that I do appreciate everyone sticking around and going through the Mark Rohr deposition. I think it was important to hear his in relation to how he handled and what he did, even though it was dumped in his lap. There were things that I feel that he could have done better and made it right, but he didn't.
Yes.
And, there's more to that. Moving forward to next week, looking forward. Any suggestions, ideas, whatever, please come to Discord or, message one of us, let one of us know. this is not just about me talking on the microphone. This is about everyone. Anyone can have the mic. That's what it's about. And it's what it should be about in relation to to these cases that we're talking about, and keeping these things fresh in people's minds, reminding or educating the newer people that have come along that don't know. And I've been in it a long time, and it helps to talk about it and get this stuff out. So there's a lot of people I have to thank, a lot of people. I'm not going to fail to do that. Banana Man, love you. Great job, dude. Seeking Truth for getting these these dispatch recordings. We're going to be moving on, at some point into the Manitowoc dispatch call. That AC Rookie got those. Everybody at Foul Play that's supporting this and helping and doing their part. It's a community effort, and I really appreciate it. So anyone though that wants the mic is welcome to have it. I'll be glad to stream it, and I'll just mute and let everyone talk. So anyway, anything else before we go? Good. Love you, everybody. This has been a Foul Play production. And we're done.